What's up, guys? It is Modern Crafts Monday, and as always, we appreciate you listening. This week's guest is...
We are back, all three of us.
We are, yes. You guys took a little hiatus on us last week.
Tyler had an event.
I took a little hiatus tonight.
You were a little quiet. He chimes in with his sarcastic comments. We don't even introduce the guest until about an hour in, so if you guys don't know who Chris Quinn is...
You're living under a rock.
Fast forward, well, yeah, but fast forward to an hour and then reverse, because we dig right into project management and some of the struggles that we deal with as owners, and kind of helping teach the project management side of our company. Also, another thing we talk about is how he leaves a company he was at for 13 years. But first, we talk about why he stuck around for 13. But then the more important question that we wanted to get to, the down and dirty, why he left and what he did when he did.
Chris is awesome, doing great stuff, and you guys should be following along, and it's a great conversation. Here's the thing. We talked about this the other day.
Right.
So
two-way conversation, I guess.
Yeah. Well, no, it's like, okay, you talk to a sub like my guy, John. He has a lot of pressure on him to make things happen. Mm-hmm. The goal is to put that pressure on your sub. Like Ben and I were talking about today, it's like our assistant PMs or whatever you want to call them are like, hey, when are you coming this week? You've created this opening that they don't have to come now.
Yeah.
You get me? Like you're
oh God, I hate that.
The pressure's still on you to make someone get there. But you have to go, hey, these two guys have their rough inspections done. When are you getting yours? Now you've taken the pressure and put that bag on their back.
Right.
And it's like, I don't know.
Bro, you never leave the door open.
Yeah.
Never leave the door open for the – it's like you have to tell them what you want to hear. Like, you're coming tomorrow, right? And then let them tell you, okay, it's not going to be tomorrow. It's going to be the next day. Okay, fine, and we can have a conversation. Yeah. But if you're like, hey, so you're going to make it here this week? Like, maybe, please, can you show up? He's going to be like, yeah, okay, I got to go 3 other jobs first, and then I'll be there. I promise you, I'm going to get there.
3 texts that day. One is, where the F are you? 2 is, when are you coming today? And the other one's like, hey, you showing up this week? Who gets thrown off the list?
Right.
That's it.
And that's it. I'm like, how do you transfer that pressure that I'm putting on you onto them to make them want to be here to relieve this? But if you keep it all on you, then you're stewing in it. You're not able to control it, and that's a really tough spot to be in, where it's all on you, and all you're getting from people is radio silent and stuff like that. And I'm like, you haven't painted that picture good enough for so-and-so to believe you that you're necessary to that project. I don't know where that came from.
That's a real thing, though, Johnny. Seriously, that's deep. Yeah, we could spend an hour just talking about that.
Totally.
But I think it's interesting, because a lot of guys like your APM and guys that are early in management probably don't like it's an honest quote unquote mistake, right? That you're giving him the opening. Once you've just verbalized that, I guarantee people are gonna hear that and be like, that's why he hasn't called me back.
Well, dude, it's not like I said. Well, here's the thing: is I think a lot of guys in the beginning. I'm gonna say this, and it's a wide open range, that people have sympathy for the trades that are working for us, because they're working for us. Not I think it changes when you then look at them that they're working with us. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't even think it's that, John. I think it really breaks down to, and like I did this when I first started, right? And it's like, okay, for my first boss, I called the plumber. I'm waiting for him to call me back. Like, okay, you're going to wait till Christmas till the guy calls you back? Like, you don't just call him once. You call him 100 times. You text him nowadays. You email him. You show up at the job that you know what he's ditching you for, if it really comes down to it. Yeah. It's just the fact that you don't know that going into it when you first start.
But I also think that these guys are like, oh, no, he has something else going on where he has to – I go, they're working somewhere. Their crew didn't take Monday, Tuesday off for this week. They are somewhere else that's more of a priority because someone's barking louder. There's a check that's waiting for them. However you want to kind of create that narrative, it has to happen. But I find that a lot of the guys we have that are into that new management role for them, they have this sympathy where it's like they'll come back to us and go, hey, this is story. So so-and-so has this. I don't give a shit.
I'm sorry. I don't give a crap about any of that. How is it affecting our job?
Yeah.
Like, how is that messing our schedule?
I can't take that story back to my architect and my owner or my developer and be like, hey, so Joe the excavator, yeah, he had a track fall off and he had a kid that had homesick from school. No.
I mean, it's the reality, but it is like it's the reality of what we deal with. But you can't I hate when it gets into the. Well, it was Thanksgiving, and so we end up taking Friday off, and it's like I don't know. Just give me a straight answer. It's like, are you going to be here today when I need you or not? Not
absolutely
why you. I don't need the backstory of why you didn't make it yesterday. I don't have time for
the drama
and gone.
I don't want the drama. Yeah. That's it. It's funny because like my one guy that I took with me forever, he gets it. He's done it. Some of the newer guys, they'll do that same thing. Like, well, I called him. He had an emergency and this, that, the next thing. And I'm like, and when is he coming? That's all I want to know.
Yeah.
And
it's fun. It's weird. There's like a fine line where you can't be rude with your guy. Your employee, because you're like I'm listening. I'm like, all I'm hearing is noise right now. Where is the actual information? And how long do I have to all right, yeah, I get that. Just give me the good stuff, but I don't want to be rude either. It's like, and I also find out that a lot of it is instead of teeing up like the Thursday, Friday for next week, they're waiting till Monday morning to tee stuff up. And
that drives me nuts.
That can't happen. If someone else as a manager is already teed up, like, hey, I got lumber, I got this, I'm sending photos, and and they have to learn it on their own, but a lot of it's where, like, hey, send that photo. That's all the lumber's sitting here, or the roofing's here. Like, don't say, like, I remember one day John was awesome, and he's like, hey, got this update for you. It was like Monday night at like 7 o'clock. He's like, hey, boom, all this stuff. And I was like, what happened to this week? Everything was like, so-and-so's coming Monday, so-and-so's coming Tuesday, all like the next week. And I was like, how do I thank him for the update? But not be like, what the F, dude? What happened to the whole week?
Well, it's very political. Yeah. And, as the owner right now, you have to look at A, your employee, and you have to coddle them a little bit, and then B, your production. Because if you get caught up in spinning him in one direction of, oh, no, I didn't do all the things and check all the boxes that John wanted, he's just going to be so caught up, or she, for that matter, is going to be so caught up in just checking those boxes that they're not doing the job you hired them for to begin with.
They're not thinking on their own.
Because now you're the one. Yeah, you're the one that's like, okay, what are we doing Friday next week? What are we doing this? When's that inspection? When's that sheetrock? When are all these other things coming? And they're just literally focusing on getting you that update that shows that they're doing their job and they're trying to do to the best of what you expect, as opposed to just doing their job in general.
I think the meat and potatoes of that, I think, Tyler, you and I talked about that, is like sense of urgency. Like, no one really has it. It's like you have to have a pulse on what's going on. Like, is so-and-so coming? Like, what's the next 3 steps? It's always like, what's in front of me? Right? I got that solved. We're good. And it's like, no, man, it's like you got to dial everything in.
I think a lot of it has to do with people being reactive as opposed to, proactive.
Right.
And that's the biggest thing that I'm trying to teach some of our newest guys is that, listen, I'm glad that you're thinking about what just happened with, moving the vent stack for the plumber. But, next time, like, we got to forecast and see this ahead of time and get in front of it. And unfortunately, and John and Nick and Tyler, you guys all realize this, is that we're all running small businesses, and the big picture, we are hiring people to do these jobs so that we can go out and get more work and do other networking and do other things for the business.
Right.
But we were really good at one thing at some point. Mm-hmm. Like I was an awesome PM and I was on top of it, but I only had 2 or 3 jobs to worry about. Now we got 10 jobs and I can't do the same thing that I was doing back then. So how do we get that same mentality to our people to actually be a better them? How do we make them a better them so that we can all keep growing together? And I think that's the biggest struggle.
Mm-hmm. And I would turn that question back on you, but before I do, it's the, exactly how we just opened this podcast is talking about, because I hope every one of, my guys that are in management hear that opening line where it's talking about how you're communicating to a sub and not leaving the door open and not leaving the sense of not having a sense of urgency, because there is a sense of urgency to what we do, and being, laxative with it and just being, let them kind of drive the bus. That's where I'm seeing the most failure, and it becomes, Chris, you probably deal with the same thing. It's like, hey, I can't get so and so on site. Like, they haven't got back to me, and you shoot them a text. It's like, boom, immediately respond, and it's you immediately feel like, all right, that's taken care of. You kind of walk away, but then as you're walking away, you're like, now I'm in charge of that. Like, it's now I just jumped. I can't, and to keep trying to delegate that. But I think you saw. I'm speaking for myself. One of the issues is that communicating that sense of urgency and explaining to them where it's like, this is how you would approach one of the subs that you need to get in contact with.
Well, I also think that from one of the examples I had was that it's not just like, he did text me at 7:30 with the update, and I was like, whoa, what happened? And I'm glad he alerted me of where everyone fell into place. And then I texted everyone directly to get actual answers instead of like, hey, it might happen this week.
Which probably helped the overall situation, but hinders John.
No, but what had to happen there was not so much me get everyone in place and correct the inaccuracy of scheduling and that. It was more to find out like, hey, the roofers are on for next Monday. I text the framer and I'm like, yo, it's Monday right now. I need roofers there ASAP before the rain comes. Remember, we had that 1 week where we had like one day where it wasn't raining. I was like, I want that. I want to be foaming when it's raining. The roof. And he's like, well, John had a question on the roof if there was something going to change. And I'm like, that's what it was. It wasn't me just putting people back in place where they should be. It was finding out that one question that their hand wasn't being raised to get that solution was actually losing a week. Mm-hmm. So it was trying to find that out and go, hey, what do we need to know about the roof? Are we adding that molding? Yeah, do it. Set the drip, get that molding there. That's what has to happen. Not just what I find is a lot of guys schedule stuff what's right in front of them, like you said, Chris, instead of going, hey, if I want to have this date done, like if I want to have all my rough mechanicals set for HVAC, plumbing, all that stuff, I got to work backwards. Like, this can't move. Like, if you move...
Yeah, you got to forecast it. Absolutely.
You got to work backwards. Someone taught me that when I was super young, was that, like, when you get, I forget what it was, like 40% on the way of the project, stop scheduling going that direction and start scheduling from your completion coming forward. Because those days aren't going away, and then when you finish a project, those last month, when you're absolute crazy, that's the mentality you have to have when you're putting a foundation in the ground. When you're framing it, is that you're just like, all right, who's next? What's happening? What? And putting pressure on a framer saying, hey, I have rough mechanicals. These guys can't move. Just curate that conversation. Like, I got this one guy. He's booked for a year. I got him for the next week. Dig into it. Like that's or I always say it like, hey, blame me. Be like, Johnny's all over me to get this done. Make me the bad guy for the next whatever. They'll believe it.
Right.
No, absolutely. I think it comes down to, from my perspective, for my guys anyway, is that, they're all trying to work their butts off to produce and to make us proud and to keep things going. But they're scared to make some decisions sometimes. Right. And it's like, I keep telling them, and it'll be something that I'm sure we all keep telling all of our people, that, listen, just ask me any question you have. Like, no problem. I'm available at any given point. Ask me the question, because I don't want to get in that situation, John, where the roofer was held up because he was waiting for an answer on something, where it's a conversation. If I'm having with the roofer, it's a quick, oh, we're doing lead coated gutter shanks? Fine, do lead coated gutter shanks. Oh, but wait, it's supposed to be natural cedar. Okay, well, I can figure that out in about 10 seconds.
Right.
But my guys are like, oh, I don't know. I got to go back and check the specs and this thing.
But the pressure had to go back on you. Like, you're comfortable taking that pressure, but it's like, if I didn't know about it, dude.
It's the same thing. We ran.
I'm happy to take it.
The other day, it's like, I show up. I just randomly showed up on one of our jobs, and they were templating stone, and the guys.
Cheers, Nick.
Well,
I do work.
That's another conversation. But the stone guy's walking out, and he, I've known him from previous jobs, and we're chatting, and he starts talking about a detail, and I overhear him. I'm like, wait, what are you talking about? And we're running through it, and I'm like, that doesn't look right. Like, that's not how we would do that. And it was the same situation. It's like, yeah, I know, but we didn't really have an answer. Like, we didn't know how. I'm like, what? Okay, I looked at him.
Red light.
Nobody uses the phone.
Why didn't we have the answer? Why didn't we know how thick that shelf was? Well, there's an email here that says 1.5 to 2 inches. I'm like, okay, make it 1.5 inches. He has on his template 1 inch. Like, why was it 1 inch? Well, we figured. I'm like, no, it says 1.5 to 2 inches. 1.5 will
I mean, I
hide
know
the
your
bracket.
level of quality. I know you have shop drawings, right? Like, does nobody have them like pinned up on the wall?
That
like, oh, okay,
that
or they're
particular
fabricated and get
detail,
'em?
no. And it was just the same situation where it's like it was uncomfortable making a decision, so it was almost like left to the stone guy. And the stone guy was
Got
like,
it.
I'm gonna make 1 inch shelves. And I was like, he left. I'm like, so just so we're clear, like, if those showed up, that would have been on us, and they would have not been installed because that is not how we would do that detail.
Yeah, we own that.
Right.
That's
But
that's on us.
I think
it's gotta be right.
Chris, I think you're absolutely right. It's like the fear of making the wrong decision and having to check the specs and having to double check, or like, we do the RFI process, but the RFI process isn't so we can take the burden off us and then be like, oh yeah, we're waiting on the architect to answer it. It's like, no, keep the progress moving. We'll use the RFI like to document this, but like that decision,
Absolutely.
like, these are decisions that need to be made.
So touching on the RFI process, one thing that drives me nuts is, and one thing we're trying to really work on, is getting in front of the RFIs and the submittals early. So like, just sticking with roofing, I don't want to put out an RFI when I have the roofer lined up for Friday asking if it's, taper sawn shingles or is it just 18-inch perfections? Like, that's got to come out.
I need that answer today because I'm ordering material tonight,
Exactly. The material's got to show up tonight, so I need you to answer me in the next 10 minutes. And I mean, we've all been there with stuff.
Sure.
There's no question. It's construction. It's going to happen. But what we need to keep doing to the younger generation is teaching them that, listen, you sign that guy up, you got to get all his submittals within the first week of him being signed up. So that, or sooner, depending on the project speed, so that you can get in front of those, so that you don't look like an idiot in front of the project team saying, hey, I need this answer right now. I know I should have given you like 2 weeks, but I know I really need this thing to keep going.
Right.
And it's just making you a better builder, and I think this goes back to some of that, what you guys were talking about on that podcast with I forgot his name, but he was down south building. I think he was in Carolina, and he was doing the authentic homes.
Oh, Hall.
Hall. And
not Hall.
1,000-year-old.
Yeah, 1,000-year-old.
Yeah, it's the 1,000-year-old house guy. And we were talking about, you guys were talking about painted brick. Mm-hmm. And we did a house a couple of years ago, and we did like authentic lime washing, which is literally where you mix the lime in the bucket with just water, and then you put it up there. And I did that house a couple of years ago, and we go back and we see it. But that RFI process took weeks to actually get the formula, to do the mock-ups, to do everything. Meanwhile, if we had started that like when we really needed it, we would have been, SOL. And the client would have been pissed off, and it wouldn't have got done until the spring because we were up against the winter. So just listening to that and like bringing it out, it's like, guys, just, all right, this is how we're going to do it. This is what I expect from you guys. If you have questions, please ask the questions.
Right.
I'm a big proponent of, there is never a bad question except the one not asked.
Right.
Just give me the question. I'll find out if you can't find out. Like, it's construction, like there's an answer out there.
I mean, there's a flip side of this whole thing, is that we're looking at from our point of view out. I also look at it from the subcontractor looking in, that I feel like all of them keep score. Like, if you do that with like the roof and you're like, oh yeah, I'm pushing you to get there, and then they show up and there's no roofing there, it's like, all right, dude, I'm -1 right now. Like next time I call, it's like crying wolf. Like as soon as I get everyone there and stuff's not ready, they're gonna be like, hey, is it ready? And they're gonna drop like 2 guys just to see if everything's ready, and it's like, I can't have that either. So there's an accuracy that has to happen there, where you have to have everything ready to go, because let's be honest, subcontractors to us, the only way they make money is if we're on our game. Is that the details are there, the answers are there, and the product's there, so that way they can just hammer through it. And without that, I don't think we're valuable.
Yeah, I mean, without that, they can just do the job directly for the owner or directly for the architect. We bring something to the table, and that's what our worth is. Like, that's why we get paid what we get paid. So we have to justify that fee. Right. And being on top of your game and making sure things are going A, B, C, D, like that's what we're doing in life, for me specifically. That's
exactly it. And that it's funny because you mentioned fee, and I think one of the hardest things, and someone had reached out about Cost Plus, is explaining, okay, what, people oftentimes ask, well, what's the fee? Like, what is that fee for? And it's exactly that. It's for the efficiency of the project. It's
Absolutely.
Like we are project managing this, and we are utilizing our skill set to make this efficient and to meet the quality and the standard at the pace that we're projecting, all of that.
I think a lot of guys don't do cost plus because they can't answer that question.
I would agree with that.
Which I don't understand, right? Because cost plus is so transparent that to the fact of that, like, okay, I went out, I got 3 bids. Here's the numbers. Here's the scope of work. Pick your poison. Here's who we recommend, and let's run with it. Right. As opposed to the GMP. And I know we all get caught up. Like, if I get a GMP on a project, we're all looking at like, okay, how are we going to get burned on that GMP? Like, what's hidden? Right.
That is the right mentality.
What's hidden deep in that spec that I missed at some random, 300-page spec book that I now own because it's a GMP? Yep. And as good as we all are, we all have misses. Like, every day something goes awry. And the GMP scares me way more than the cost plus.
Yeah. But I think John's
I'm much
right.
more comfortable with that.
I think the fact is, like, you're gonna, say you go in and you start charging a higher fee than everyone else. Oh, well, why? Like, why is your fee higher than the next guy? I think that's what because it's not it's simple mathematically, like and transparently, but to communicate that to a client, it's like, oh, my fee is higher because this. It's like, that guy's doing the same work. It's like, I know, but I'll be more efficient at it. What do you mean you'll be more efficient at it? The schedule matches, everything matches. I think John's right.
I think that's where you come off, and you're absolutely right, Nick. This is where you have to sell yourself, right? And I read a great book years ago. It's called Selling the Invisible. Like, as builders, we were just selling that, hey, we can get this job done, right? Like, okay, yeah, can you? Yeah, any builder can, per se. But what do you bring to the table that actually differentiates yourself from, your main competition? And it's like, okay, what do I bring to the table? What is my team? Okay, well, I have a team of people. We have, on staff guys that do X, Y, and Z. And I'm involved in every one of our projects. And, you can go down the list of why you're better, but you need to know what that list is, right? So you need to justify it and have it in your head so that when you're standing across the table from the client and this is your one moment that you get with them, go and hit the ground running with it and tell them exactly why you're better than your competition and for what reasons, but it's a real thing for sure. And not a lot of people can answer it. And I know why people get scared of the cost plus, but I just don't understand it because it's completely transparent. Sure. Like, everything's there. All the documentation's there.
I think the one of the biggest pain points of it is the amount of work it takes, the amount of paperwork. It's a lot more work.
But I'll tell you this, when it comes down to if you ever get audited at the end of the project.
Absolutely. I mean, on your books, like, it makes you a better accountant.
You should be doing it internally, no matter what.
It should be done anyway, but it is just more work to to keep up with. You can't be lazy with it. You can't wait a month. You're not just billing on a schedule. It's like
it almost forces you to hire somebody out for that task, whether it's a controller, a bookkeeper, or office manager, and it forces your hand to have that person. Right. A lot of times you can do a GMP and let things do a milestone where it's like, oh, let me get my 20 grand. Let me do this. And that is easier. The problem is let's say you do a milestone and a client can't make a tile decision and that holds up that milestone payment. You're screwed.
Right.
Then now you're a contractor juggling jobs because you need to get a paycheck. So having cost plus, it gives you the ability to kind of maneuver through it. And then if they're dragging their feet, you can say, hey, it's going to cost you management until you make this decision because things have to keep moving because that deadline is looming. Your move-in date, whatever it is, most of the time when they're making that decision, they're not calculating that into it. And if you can put a value on that, everyone understands at that point. So it does help you navigate that, and it keeps you on track of your billing when if you wreck out later on, like you forgot to do a credit card wreck, and you're like, oh, well, there's $7,000 I'll never get back again because I've already closed the job out.
Right.
It's like, let me email them back now.
Yeah, it makes you hyper aware of it, and it certainly helps for estimating. I wanted to go back to a comment you made, Chris, about, if one of your PMs, your APMs has a question to not ask it.
Not assume.
But reach out and ask you directly, right? So this is something, and I think, this is where you kind of walk that delicate line of, no, ask me the question if the question needs to be asked, but don't, how do you communicate that while also communicating the fact that don't rely on me? You need to
Absolutely.
before you ask me the question, you need to take every avenue to make sure you're answering that, not in a casual way, in a time like in a fast pace. And if you can't answer that fast pace, then you reach out to me. Tyler.
It's a real thing. I mean, I grew up in a company culture for years, and it was very old school, and it was just a very older guy, and he was like, sink or swim. And it's like, here's the project, here's your stuff, call me when it's done kind of deal. So I had to figure it all out on my own. No, I don't necessarily want to.
Owner mentality, it's how everyone should be thinking about a project.
It is, but it isn't, right? Because it actually doesn't foster a relationship within that culture. Because now I was at the time, I was younger, and I was scared to ask the question like, oh, if I ask him a question about, X, Y, and Z, he's going to get pissed off that I didn't know that to begin with. Right. So now I'm just going to assume that, oh crap, I got to go do all my homework, and maybe I'm making the best answer. Maybe I'm not making a good decision. I don't know. But now as an owner, looking back onto what I want to, do with my people is, ask me all these questions. I have no problem. But don't ask me repetitive questions.
Right.
Because then I just know you're not paying attention to what I'm trying to get across to you. Like I have no problem answering any question at any juncture on any one of the projects, because ultimately it's your face, it's my face, it's my partner's face that have to stand up to it and own it. If somebody messes up and we want to redo something, that's on us. But, don't just assume, because we all know what happens with that. But don't ask me repetitively the same thing over and over and over again, or the same thing on the same or different project over and over again. Yeah, because that's kind of just showing me that A, either you're not listening to what I'm trying to get across to you, or B, you just don't care and you're just 9 to 5 in it. So it's a super fine line, and I would say that there's more personalities involved and feelings involved now than there were when we all first started in this business.
Absolutely.
Like nobody cared if we worked a 10-hour day as long as the job was getting done. But nobody was also patting us on the back saying, hey, congratulations for working that 10-hour day. Go work a 6-hour day on Friday.
I don't think we're looking for it either, though.
No,
it was
I don't.
Just kind of
not
the
at
nature
all.
of the beast. And I think that's lost nowadays, where a lot of guys don't understand what things cost. They don't know the repercussions of what happens if they don't make a decision. And they don't care if it gets to the point where that stone fabricator's in the room and that person doesn't have the answer. That, like you said, Chris, it's scary. Yeah, you do that once where you're like, hey, I didn't ask so-and-so for a detail on this before, or I didn't ask, the sinks weren't there, the faucet wasn't there. I did that once in my life where it was like, hey, I got the stone fabricator. I did everything I could to get him there on time. And he walks in the door and goes, where are the sinks? Fuck if I know. Like, and you're like, oh man,
I was this close
for nothing.
This close to having that.
You make that mistake once, and then you have to deal with the repercussions, and boom. But I don't know.
I made that mistake on my first big project out in the Hamptons, and I didn't ask the architect the question on where the brick shelf was on the drawings, right? And I didn't think about it. I was 26 years old. I had no idea what a brick shelf was really at that time. So we pour the foundation. The chimney mast is flush with the foundation walls. And if anybody's looking at it now, you'd be like, hey, where are you going to bring your brick to? Like, that's got to go below grade. So that this way, at least the first couple of courses are covered. Man, when my boss at the time came there and he looked at that, he literally looked at me and was just like, brick shelf? Got in his car and drove away, like stormed off. And I was like, okay, I'll never, ever make that mistake again. I mean, that's like the thing that it's always those misses that you do once that you're like, okay, I got it now. I can fix that on the next one.
So Nick, how do you, like with the whole we're all on the same page and all on the same plane, like, hey, it's okay, bud. Like how do they learn that lesson? I'm in between. It's a tough thing to skate around.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like I said, when they left, we had a conversation about it. It's, I certainly don't get mad at it, and we've talked about this, but we have a conversation. It's like, dude, like, hey, if you don't have an answer, like, that needs to be asked, or if no one's giving you the answer, then you need to assume what we're doing, like, our standard.
But is it weird? Like, I'm putting myself in your position there. It's like, all right, I pay to have all this stuff thought out. Like, I do all this stuff with Build a Trend. I get all this stuff so it's all linked together. And then when something like that happens, is it like, guys, this sucks? Like, I know getting mad and yelling at somebody doesn't help, but it's like, why did I put all this together? Why did we invest all this effort into all these systems and all this stuff if we're not using it and we're still, like, just guessing at stuff?
if it was, to Chris's point, if it was a repeat offense, that's where I would be extremely frustrated with and be mad at. It wasn't. It was. In this case, there wasn't a shot drawing.
I guess I wasn't using
right?
that. I'm just.
No, I know,
that?
but that it's very rare. It's very rare that something happens twice. If it does, then that's a huge issue. But it's usually a kind of a one and done, and we have a conversation. It's like, hey, dude, like this is how we would, this is how we would handle this situation going forward, or this is what we need to do next time, or this is how we prevent this. And if it keeps happening, that's when it's more of all right, we need to like debrief and have a serious conversation because this shit doesn't fly anymore. But it like that, I mean,
I guess my point in that question was, it's really tough to put guys on notice.
Yeah, and I
Like,
probably
agreed.
I probably don't do a very good job at that.
I think it's very hard to do. I don't think you're doing a bad job of it.
No, but I think you've made the comment before, and it's made me drive home and question everything I fucking do.
You're not the only one. I do it all the time.
But I was like, I wonder if I go on the job site and everyone's like, oh, here's that fool Nick again. I'm just gonna pretend
I don't
I'm
think
doing
it's
some stuff over here. Yeah, I got my tape measure and.
But like I had the comment once to somebody that it was like, hey, right now, you're not covering your salary. Like, let's just put it in plain terms, is that you get paid X amount of dollars to be able to cover X amount of space.
Right.
And that means...
You're talking about the PMs.
Yeah, just being able to cover this. And if you're not doing that, if you're not stepping up, you're not covering the salary. From just... I guess I watched Moneyball the other day, and he's like, I don't talk to the players because I got to cut them loose. And it's like... It was my way of saying it where it wasn't you and me. It wasn't like us being two humans. It was like, if I look at the numbers, this doesn't work right now. Like, you need to step up for this to make, like, I'm not going to get trucks. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to get health, not health insurance, but like all this stuff we're investing into this.
Taking away
no, absolutely. I mean, you can't build the company on the culture of like, oh, I made a mistake, no problem. We'll just sweep it under the rug and move on to the next one. Yeah. Like, I don't want those people.
No,
and
it's
no company can afford it.
No, and it's never swept under the rug. But I think there is like there's the getting mad and like your blood pressure goes up, and this is how I'm reacting to it. To where it's like, for me, I make a conscious effort to every issue that comes up. It's like, all right, this isn't a big deal, and I'll voice that. It's like, this isn't a big deal, but it can't happen again. Like, we're going to fix this. Nothing gets swept under the rug. It's like, you rip everything out and redo it because and I want you to understand, like, that's a cost to us. And that's
but how do they understand, like that comment I had about like, this is how much you like as owners?
Yeah,
there's a lot that we hide on how much effort it takes to build this thing up. Like your payroll, I think I got my payroll. IRS sent me like this breakdown of how much I pay in payroll. And like they sent it for next year, and I got that bill, and I was like,
"Oh yeah, your estimate, like your estimated,
like, Yo, what is this?" I sent it to like bookkeepers, everybody. I was
the
like,
top, it says not a bill.
Yeah, exactly. But I didn't see it. I just saw the values.
Like, that should be highlighted.
But like,
you know what I don't understand on that tangent? Just to go on a tangent real quick about that is they send you those, and then your accountant's like, "Yeah, you should pay that." You're like, "Wait, what do you mean? That's an estimate?" And they're like, "No, just pay a portion of that or pay a fraction of that just so that this way it's not as bad."
Am I speaking for myself where it's like I look at him and I'm like, I can't pay that right now. Exactly. Like I didn't project that.
Yeah. I was like, when does that get paid? Like, is that due, or is someone not paying that when they should be? Like,
I remember like the first few years, he's like, no, you got to pay. Like, that should be paid, I don't know, like next week. I'm like, okay, so how much does it cost for me to defer it? Because I hope I have that much money.
What's the penalty?
Because I certainly can't pay the whole thing. I'll pay the penalty and pay it like 6 months.
Like, what I'm saying is, like, imagine if the employees got that notice. Like,
oh god,
like, yeah, like, guys, this.
So that's what. So
what's the wake up call, right?
Exactly.
When's the wake up moment?
Do you
right when they're like, I got it?
Do you share financials with that side of your company? Like, do you guys review?
Not that side of them. I mean, they have, our employees, our PMs, and our site guys have access to, let's say, the full job budget. So they see.
I mean, business. Like, hey, dude, like, this is where our P&L is this quarter. Like, who are you?
No, that's just internally between my partner and myself. because I don't think that benefits us to put it out there, because I think the culture is different these days, but there's still that jealous type, and you don't know which one's going to be jealous of. Oh, well, look, they're going to make, X amount of dollars on this job, and I can mess up 10 things and it wouldn't matter to their bottom line.
Interesting.
It's like watching that A&E show where the guy's like driving a Porsche to the flip, and he's like, "You're costing us too much money." It's like, bro, are you serious? You just drove a Ferrari to the flip in Las Vegas. Like,
that's the Vegas one, right? Oh, geez, those guys are so bad.
But no, you're right. It's like showing a lot of that, and maybe it didn't affect these people, the employees, that way by seeing it, but it might create this resentment that.
What about just sharing the expense side of it?
Oh no, I've definitely shared the like, hey guys, listen, that right there is going to cost us $10,000. Like, it's not you, it's not coming out of your salary, it's not coming out of your bonus, but like, this is a real thing. Like, there is no other golden umbrella behind us that the money just drops from the pear tree. Like, this is it. This comes out of my pocket, So don't ask me, like Johnny said, don't ask me about that company truck if we get too many more of these things happening.
Sure.
You gotta earn that truck.
What is your role now? Like,
truck,
if coming from a PM at another company and
Should we start from the beginning? We had our list.
We'll start from the beginning, but to go back to like answering questions for these guys, what role do you play in the company besides owner, networking, selling jobs? You're on job sites.
Operations.
But
So I'm on the job between my business partner and myself. My partner's more of the estimating and the contract stuff, and he's really good at that stuff. And I'm more of the boots on the ground, shaking the trees, getting it done kind of thing. And that's where, for me, that's like, I grew up in the field, so it's a natural spot to be in. It's a comfortable environment. Being in the office is great in the middle of the winter, but I kind of start, twitching if I'm in the office for too long on any given day. Johnny, I know you can relate to that.
I need my vitamin
D. I've honed a skill of just getting things done, getting things accomplished, and being able to forecast. Okay, I need this guy to show up and do this. I need that guy tomorrow to do that. The next guy to do the other thing. And so what I'm trying to do is teach to my guys in the field, like, how to get better at doing that. Because we've had, a wide range of people join our firm, and we're trying to figure out, it's the first year with them, and okay, who's really good at what kind of deal. And in that, you see strengths and you see weaknesses. And I'm just trying to look at myself saying, okay, how do I make that person better so that I can break off more time for myself and go do whatever else it is that I need to do, or on that other job that I'm supposed to be doing it on. When I first started the company,
you're really operations. You're making a lot of decisions and coordinating a lot of guys where
daily
you're doing it in efforts to train the PMs.
Yeah.
'Cause eventually, like, you can't be doing that.
No. Like, and that's what my partner and I have. We talk about this every day. It's like, I don't want to do this in this capacity for a very long time.
You want to go. You're probably similar to myself. You want to go on the job site, look around, offer your opinion, make something cooler, do this, do that, like, understand what's going on, but walk away knowing that, like, things are getting done because your PM's been trained.
Yeah, that's definitely the goal, is to be able to bounce around to different jobs throughout the day, come and give, information where information is needed, and look at things and make sure the quality control is there and do that part of it, as opposed to worrying about if the concrete guy's coming and then if the masons are starting right after them and then the roofers right after them. I want to kind of divorce myself of the nitty gritty, everyday daily routine, and be big picture with my crews and be like, okay, listen, let's have our weekly meeting. And this is where our milestones need to be for these projects. Like, that's what I want to focus on. But now, just starting out with the company and with the people that we have, a lot of them don't have the same experience. And I think even more of them don't have the same drive that I have or my business partner has with certain aspects of building, like, these are guys that this is a 9-to-5 job for them. And yeah, they want to be involved in the company and they're very excited to be a part of us, but it's not their company at the end of the day. So they can literally turn it off if they want to at any given time. Whereas, I'm freaking out. I got 3 projects that are due in the next 6 weeks, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, which one do I spend more time at right now? What fire do I have to put out right now? So really, I'm trying to get away from that and trying to just, get advice from all different people on how to, like I said, divorce myself of the daily stuff and get more big picture.
So what was your role? I forget the company that you used to work for. But what
we can leave him unmentioned. It's fine. I feel John's sentiment on that.
Sure. But were you PM over there?
So I started out as a PM over there, and then so we were in the Hamptons, and they were just focused in the Hamptons. So I was out there driving and commuting out that way. And then we had clients that were doing more projects up in the Westchester, Connecticut area outside of New York City. So I was working on a 40,000 square foot project for a great client. And I convinced my boss at the time, I said, listen, why don't we just open up an office and do the same thing that we're doing out in the Hamptons up here? And he's like, again, very sink or swim, very black and white. There was no gray with the guy. He's like, yeah, you think you could do it? I'm like, yeah, why not? So he's like, all right, go find an office, get a lease. Let's see what you can do. And it was literally like, that's it. Like literally dropped me in Vietnam and was like, okay, here's the phone. Here's a checkbook, and go do what you got to do. And I'm like, okay. So day one was the scariest day because I was like,
you were a PM at that time?
Oh yeah. I was a PM at that time, running the biggest job in the company at that time.
He suggested that, and he was like something else, like an intern.
Well, he said he started out as a PM. I didn't know if his role had changed.
No, so and again, he was very old school. Like there was only PMs and site guys and him. That was it. There wasn't any other infrastructure set up.
Yep.
So I was at the top of the echelon within the company, and he gave me that opportunity. I took it and literally started cold calling people, which is the absolute worst, and was able to shake a few trees and landed one project.
Who were you cold calling?
Got another one at the same time. Literally cold calling architects. And we'd be like, hey, listen, I work for such and such a firm. I would love to come into your office and sit down and meet up and show you our portfolio and see how we could, collaborate on something and da-da-da-da.
Elaborate on that, because that is something that people ask all the time. It's like, what? I get it. You call them and you tell them you want to talk to the architect, and you go in and you show them your pictures and your portfolio, and then you're like, let us know how we can help. It's like, what was your, quote, I'm using air quotes, angle at that time?
There was no angle. There was literally, I had a list, and I was just going down the list on prominent architects in the area and outside of the area that did work in the area. And we had a reputation. The company had a big reputation for the Hamptons. So I was a lot of people knew who we were, but they had pigeonholed us only to that market. So I was trying to get in there and explain how we can open up, operate what we have, and we're doing other projects up in this area, and would love to come in and talk to you, and et cetera, et cetera. When I get to the office, like just getting past the receptionist to actually speak to someone to make the appointment was like a win. It was like, even if it showed up and the appointment was 5 minutes, that was a win for the day, because I got in, I made the thing, and I got the victory. But on the ones that we actually got plans from, it was like you go in the office not knowing anything, like expect the worst, hoping for the best.
Sure.
And maybe the meeting's 5 minutes, maybe the meeting's 45 minutes. You have no idea. It's just your FaceTime with that person and how you can get them to, go down the road of, hey, well, I have a project and it's going out the door. Would you like to bid it? Like that's the ultimate goal out of that meeting. Getting there, it's a crapshoot, man. It really is.
What do you think your success rate was? Like if you made 100 calls, how many meetings did you get? And then out of the meetings, how many jobs did you walk out of there?
Out of the 100 calls, I think I got maybe 20 meetings. And out of those 20 meetings, I got maybe 6 jobs.
Yeah.
So, but that's just the market, because I'm brand new.
Sure.
I'm younger looking. B, we're a new name into an already crowded field in the local market. And C, they're like, all right, well, we already have our favorites. So what makes you better than them that we're going to open the door to you to actually maybe throw a wrench in our situation where we know we have known things with each one of these favorites. We know the quality of this. Yeah, exactly. It's the devil, right? So they're like, what's the greatest thing that you will bring to the table? And at that point, it was literally just selling myself and the company. And I had to, at the time I had to lie and say I wasn't a project manager. I was like, yeah, what did I say at the time? I'm a managing director. That's what I said. I was like, I'm a managing director of the firm and for this office. And then I just put it on my business card and ran with it. And then when I started bringing in work, like the boss was like, okay, you're a managing director. Great. That's like fine. Like one of the first jobs we landed was a big $13 million job. But we had worked for the architecture firm on a different project like 10 years earlier. So they knew who we were. We just faded to black for a while. And then we came back and they're like, all right, we'll give you this opportunity. So we got in the door, we started doing the project, and they're like, oh, okay, great. And that led to another thing and led to another thing. So it's really just luck of the draw. But I really think it has to do with that conversation with that, for us, with that architect and the personalities. If the personalities don't click, like it's just not going to work.
Right.
You know, no matter what the budget is, like you could come in and be the lowest guy and they don't care. You know.
If you were to if you were to do that again, do you think you would have? Well, I guess you did. I guess you technically did do it again when you started your own company.
I did. Yeah, but the greatest thing that I was able to do during that previous time was lay the groundwork for networking during that tenure for myself.
Personally, yeah.
Yes, because people started recognizing, you know, you go to all the networking events, everybody knows who you are now, right? Like people recognize the name and the face, and then what company you're with doesn't really matter. They just know, oh yeah, I know him. We talked about, he's doing a great project, blah, blah, blah. You know, so that was the biggest thing that I was able to do at that time, was just personal networking. Because when I transferred to our company now, I was able to bring a lot of those relationships with me. Like they knew what we did, they knew who I was, they knew what I did, and as far as like if something goes wrong in the project and an architect forgets something, like we'll take care of it. We're not going to sit there with our hand out saying, well, sorry, that's going to cost an extra X, Y, and Z. You know, if it's within reason. I'm not saying if, you know, they missed the pool house and then we're just going to eat the pool house. But, you know, so if it's like, oh, they missed the trim detail, no problem. We got it. We'll take care of it. You start getting a reputation to being a team player, that goes leaps and bounds more than what value that, you know, you were ever going to get for that miss on the change order, let's say.
Well, there's responsibility. And I think people know who's responsible for the nuts and bolts of the day-to-day.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, you and I are very alike in what we've done over the last year, 2 years. And people know who's the fluff and people know who's boots on the ground. And being at these events and having your sleeves rolled up there's something valued there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it comes, you know, to second that motion, it also does, like, you know what you're talking about. So if they go to the job site and they're asking you about something that they don't necessarily know or aren't sure about, but they know you'll know what's going on. And then you actually bring that information, you smooth over the meeting, and you go in a direction where it's collaborative and everybody's making, you know, the right decision. Then they're like, yeah, this is a great team. Like, why break up a good team for something over, you know, a few dollars? Like, yeah, we'll make it up on the next one, whatever. We'll figure out the dollars and cents of it. But I'd rather have that relationship where I know this guy isn't going to just throw me under the bus because I forgot to detail or dimension something that could really affect the project.
Sure.
You know, and so after enough times of doing that, like, the architects and the designers, they get appreciative and they're just like, yeah, we like working with them. Like, they make our lives easier. Right. Why wouldn't we work with them?
Yeah, I mean, that's the building relationship part of it. But so I want to get into as much as you're willing to with the transfer to your new company. But before that, you were at your previous company for a long time, like a really long time considering the industry.
Yeah. Yeah, I was at that company for 13 years.
13.
And yeah.
Why?
And that's what,
like,
I mean,
I
cut
guess
my teeth.
The biggest question is, like, why? What kept you there for 13 years?
Fortunately at the time, we get to work for some of the best projects around locally in that market and our markets that we get to play. So we get to play with some of the craziest materials and do some of the most outlandish stuff. So you know, as the 13 years started to wane, I had expectations of always starting my own company or progressing on to doing my own thing. So I didn't want to just go work for somebody else, you know, get year 10 and then be like, all right, now I got to go either start my own company right now or work for somebody else. And it probably not be where I am in the same company, you know, not be where I am in this company, in that company, because there's other people in that company that have been there for longer than I have, and you rightfully so, right? So it got to the time when my boss passed, and I was like, all right, well, now it's sugar get off the pot time. And it's like, am I going to go work for somebody else and possibly, you know, just feel the comfort of knowing that there's going to be a paycheck there every week? At the time, I had 2 kids and 1 on the way, so I was freaking out about that. But I was like, also, I'm not getting any younger. And if I don't do it now, it's kind of like I'm just pushing off the inevitable of never doing it and just being shoehorned into working for somebody forever. It's like, I don't want to go down that road.
Well, I think it's
right, Johnny. I think you can express to that point.
We talked a little bit a while back. And well, there's 2 stories I want to talk about. One was I had an old boss. I always talk about my 63-year-old boss. And he'd be interviewing guys, and he'd point blank tell me. I didn't realize it was valuable then. He's like, some of these guys we're interviewing are like late 40s. He's like, these guys aren't having their own companies. There's a small window where if they haven't done it, they're never doing it. And I think that I mean, that didn't come into play for us, but I mean, for you being somewhere for as long as you did, I wanted to ask you how much of the economy, the way it was rolling out, played. We talked before that I was like, hey, if I'm not going to get what I'm promised, then, dude, it's never going to be this good for this long.
Yeah.
That if I don't start now, I'm only screwing myself by waiting 2 more years in hopes and dreams, and then the economy take a change, and then my opportunity is gone, and then I am stuck working for somebody. Did the economy play anything into that? I mean, you're in the 0.005% of the clients.
Yeah, we get the really cool little sandbox over here of really wealthy clients.
It's not even
awesome.
sand, bro. It's like diamonds.
It's great, but it comes along with, all the stresses of that expectation of they are paying top dollar, and you're a slave to them at some juncture just to produce what their expectation is. But so the economy for me personally, it wasn't the economy issue. It was more of, I think this is my time and strike while the iron's hot. And it was really interesting that my old company and my current company were going after the same project at the time my boss passed. So we didn't realize it at the time. Like, we passed each other. My business partner and I passed each other on the street in New York City at the walkthrough for the project. And we knew each other through networking events, just the face. And we'd be like, hey, what's going on? I don't remember what that guy's name is, but he looks familiar. We both said hi. He went up, I went down, kind of thing. The tragedy happened. I'm sitting back, and the owner's rep for that client called me and he said, hey, listen, I got a crazy idea, but would you ever think of going out on your own and partnering up and, joining forces? And I'm like, I hadn't really thought about it. My boss just died. I'm kind of trying to figure out what I'm doing with my life right this second, but that's a good opportunity. He's like, all right, keep your eyes open. Let's talk and let's see where this project goes. Cause the project was kind of on hold because they were doing some design changes and so on and so forth. So like a week or two goes by, my another buddy of mine was like, hey, we're going to this polo event. And I know this sounds all bougie, but down here in Greenwich, they have this polo club.
Is that like Great Gatsby stuff? Like, how's it work?
It's like it is the Great Gatsby stuff. No joke. So they have this polo club, and one of the local networking magazines had a networking event there, and they're like, you should go. And I'm like, I was telling my wife at the time, I was like, I do not want to go, because the only thing people are going to want to talk to me about is, what are you doing with your life now that your boss just died? What's happening in the company, et cetera, et cetera. And I just don't want the stress and the headache. Like, it's a Sunday afternoon. I just want to relax and either be with the kids or hang out with you or whatever. She's like, no, let's get out of the house. Let's just go. Leave the kids with my parents and let's go and enjoy it. So I go to the polo thing, and unbeknownst to me, my future business partner was also invited to the polo thing. Within 5 minutes of me getting there, he walks up. He's like, hey, what's going on? And I immediately was like, see, this is exactly why I didn't want to come. I knew this was going to happen. How many other people are going to come up to me and want to talk? And the next sentence out of his mouth is like, now's not the time to talk about this, but let's grab drinks in the next week or so and see if we can align and see where the future takes us. And I was like, okay. He went on his way. I enjoyed the rest of the afternoon. We met up a couple weeks after that, and then the rest is history. And it's those chance encounters that I was like, oh, wow, yeah, this is the right time. Like, because you can try to plan and line it up so that you can make the departure and make it as seamless as possible. But if the economy doesn't work out, if the projects don't fall in line, if you can't get people to come work for you, if you don't know what you're doing on the business side, like, it's going to be a disaster. So a lot of luck played into it. There's no question. I'm not saying I'm any business genius, but I also grew up in the company for long enough that I knew how to run a business. He already had the business going, so I kind of joined the existing business, and then we just kind of catapulted from there and took it on to doing much bigger projects that we're doing now. Well, so yeah, it's been an interesting journey.
To say the least. What was he doing? So he I think I heard it right.
Does he have a name?
Brian.
Okay, that's better.
Yep.
Okay.
Brian. So Brian had the company.
Do you have an Ivan?
He was working. I do have an Ivan.
Oh, okay.
That's my right hand in the field is Ivan.
I swore his name was Ivan.
Yeah, that's who you met, was Ivan.
Oh, okay.
You'll see Brian will be at IBS this year, so you'll see him over there.
Okay, cool.
So Brian had the company. He started the company years ago because he was working for a commercial company, and at the time when he was leaving the commercial company, in order to do a non-compete, he started a high-end res company. So he's like, okay, I'm going to go and hire in residential. This is non-compete. We're not going after the same clientele or the same anything. So he started the actual Apex back then.
Okay.
I think it was 6 or something years ago now. When we got together, he was doing more consulting, and I brought in, let's say, the GC boots on the ground builder to the company. So now we're actually doing our own building. So now we have our own trucks and we got our own tools, and we're doing more general contracting than he did. It was more for him. It was more consulting.
Bro,
I think when he started the company.
Yo, where did all this money come from? All right.
What money?
10 employees, trucks. I mean, it's not NS Builder's budget, but like, I mean,
we're all trying to follow Nick.
It took me a year to letter my truck.
Black. I want matte black sprinters. No, matte blue.
It's not matte black. It's matte
blue.
navy. It's matte navy blue, and
corrected
it is
me before.
awesome.
Right.
It should be like indigo. It's like.
So I'm looking at the CMQ budget.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Awesome.
Every time I hear your story, I'm like, yo, you're a year in. Did you get a credit line? You won a lottery?
Mean, all right, so you got
money trees
trucks
out
are
there?
Great. Trucks are great because you need them to do the business, right? Like we need them to just get materials to the job site and stuff like that. So as opposed to paying the delivery fees for certain things, obviously the big lumber delivery is fine, but and also for our guys, like the brand, like we want to be not the next biggest builder, like that's not our thing, but we want to be a boutique,
elite,
high-end. Yeah, we want to be an elite builder in our field, right? So in order to do that, you need to grow the brand. What's the best form of advertising? Is brand awareness, and brand awareness really comes with passing on the streets.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, so, and one of the things one of our lead PM brought to us, we were like, how does anybody know what companies are out there? Like you see the trucks, right? You see trucks and you recognize the name and this and that. We could go, and I think we're all in the same boat, that we can literally drop $100,000 a year easy on print ad, right? That may or may not work. And it's literally just that $100,000 or $50,000, whatever it is gone as soon as that magazine leaves the shelf, right? Or you can buy a truck and you finance it for X amount of years. And then you have that symbol driving around the neighborhoods day in and day out. Like that means more to us than the print media, right? I don't know. It's Nick. How do you feel?
I've been going
about
back and forth on this one between.
I
Nick
agree.
and
I mean, that's why we bought the vans. We have 4 vans, and that's why the PMs are have trucks. It's like my truck's still not lettered. You beat me to it, but it's the same thing. We don't do any print ad. Everything has been through social media and building brand awareness and having the trucks. Like we had this conversation way back when I was thinking about buying them, and it's like, I guess I could just.
We never had this conversation because I remember Tyler going to me, dude, Nick just bought 3 trucks on a private text. Should we worry about him?
I feel like John said he bought one thing, and then Nick was like, I just bought 3.
I did. I think I sent a picture of them. I'm like, this is what I bought.
I just bought
a fleet. I'll see your one.
But it's just I feel the same exact way.
Raise you 3.
We're gonna show up. We want to go after higher end clients. We want to pull into their driveway, and I don't want my guys pulling in,
in a Jetta.
It's like show up in a van that's lettered that looks legit. That's
absolutely.
And that there there's you can argue that it's leaner or more cost effective for them to drive there. It's just immediately to the brand awareness, and that has been
But we talked about this before. Is that it isn't that much leaner because you're paying mileage. They're driving their own vehicle. You have to do the maintenance. So when you're all
lied, I never did the math.
I know. I always ask you if you did. I've stopped doing that. But like I've done the math, and it's more valuable for us to have something that's lettered, that's a company vehicle, that we're actually going to have some brand awareness on it. Where someone else is driving their truck that's going to the job every day, we're not getting anything out of that, but yet we're still paying for it.
As stupid as it sounds, it's like the amount of people that message me or text me a picture of my van driving somewhere or at a job or is every week. And it's like, oh, I just saw your van. And it's like, we have 3. It's like, they're not, and they're all over the place. And it's like,
dude, we have one Sprinter. And there was one week that I got the same kind of thing. Like 5 people reached out to me like, oh, I saw your van. And the geographical location was literally spread about 30 miles, in a radius of this thing. And I'm like, Well, it's the same van, but that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like it's doing its job.
me,
Like,
Hey, they don't need to know that.
no, I didn't say that, but
Hey,
I'm
what,
like,
did you
thanks,
say what
man. I
number
didn't
was
let
that? Number
Matt Blue rap.
90? Was that number 90 or no? But
Yeah,
that
because
that's the ROI.
we haven't
It's
put-
like you're creating awareness. You're creating a sense of professionalism. Like that's
Funny story.
Yeah, I think it's an investment, right? Like just going back to what I said about the print media, I think, from our perspective, we needed to do a bunch of print media just to get brand awareness out there. Like Brian had the company started, but we weren't known. So I'm bringing in these connections with these local architects and these designers, but I also want to have these connections in the neighborhoods where these trucks and vans are,
But
because
what
we're
pictures are you using?
What's that?
We just using like rough framing pictures? Like what images are you putting into these ads if you're a year old? Like when I started the company at Vintage, it was like, dude, we got nothing. Like starting social media, I'm like, here's a hole in the ground.
Did they use that picture of you flexing in front of the farmhouse?
Yeah, they did. That was good.
Yeah, no, Johnny, you're absolutely right, and that comes to something we'll talk about if we want to get into it. But the old company was going after my Instagram just because of all my old pictures and everything that I had on the account.
Meaning
and so
off
then
air or on air?
No, off air, like literally served letters from lawyers and things like that. And
No,
I'm
can
like,
we talk about it on air?
I feel your pain.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So
I had one day where I deleted 2,000 photos off my IG.
Yeah, there's way better things
Me too.
you should be doing.
And it was a big thing, and
I
it
had no
happened
choice.
after not that long after Johnny, you and I talked about it, and I was like, oh, this is gonna suck if that happens. And then 2 months later or something, I get served with a letter, and I ignored the first letter, and then I was talking to my business partner about it because they actually sent it to the wrong company. So I'm like, wow, look, legally, we don't have to do anything. Look, these idiots don't even know who they're going after. Like, that's cool. Send it to the wrong company and see what response you get. So then I found out, talking to our lawyer, they're like, well, it actually doesn't matter. They meant to send it to you. It's addressed to you, even though it's the wrong company. So you're still personally liable.
I was
And I'm
going
like,
to say,
okay,
isn't
this
that like a
sucks.
speeding ticket when he writes your plate number wrong? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much. But listen, I was living in a little bubble of AFM at the time.
Sure.
Like, it didn't matter. Like, they sent it to the wrong guy. They can't come after me. Well, they came after me again. And then, we're talking to the lawyers, and it really got into something that I think
They
a
don't
lot of
mail it,
people
they
that
hand
go
it
out
to
on
you
their
at
own.
that point.
Yeah, but I think it gets into something that a lot of people that has done this transition didn't know beforehand. But like those pictures are copyrighted to Instagram and to Facebook, but they're also they're owned by the company if you took them under company hours, let's say. So unless you can prove that you took that picture on a Sunday and you weren't on payroll, then maybe you have a fight.
Sure.
But
It's also
really
the fact that who owns the phone that they're being taken with.
Who owns the phone that they're being taken of? And did you get that? Like, why are you on? Is it your job site or is it their job site? It's one of those things. Is it a completed project or is it not? So it becomes this whole slippery slope. And I was talking to Brian about it, and we're like, how far do you really want to take it? And for the first couple of weeks, like, I was pissed, man. This was, a body of my work for 2, 3, 4 years, however many pictures I had on there. And I was really angry to have to take a lot of that down and just like being stubborn about it. And then I had one aha moment just on a Sunday morning, just laying in bed looking at Instagram. And I was like, you know what? Forget it. Like, I'm just going to take all these pictures down. I'll leave the ones up that are my personal stuff, and I'll start over. And we're already making en routes to start over. So fine. You know what? You can have all that work. No problem. It's yours. Good luck with whatever you do with it. And I'm going to go do my own thing over here. And from that end, we took the pictures down and moved on.
My hardest part was, like, I don't think a lot of people got inspiration from my posts, from the photos. It was more of what I said. Like, it's those little stories and those little moments disappeared. And I think it was Tyler.
Yeah.
I would text these guys, like, what do I do? And Tyler's like, start over. Like, 3 words.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, thanks,
Yeah.
bro. And it was just short, sweet. And I was like, you're absolutely right. And it was, I mean, these 2 guys kind of walked me through that whole thing. And it was tough because, I mean, you do put a lot of strength into social media because, whatever, how many followers you have, people like you for, you don't really know what they value. You get me?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's really tough that, especially when you're starting a company, is that, hey, do I actually bring value? Do the way I manage bring value, or is it the company that cuts the checks bring value? Mm-hmm. And starting your own thing, it really makes you question. I think my biggest fear was, everyone says that they're on board. Everyone's cool with you. And then as soon as you cut bait and you change the name on everything, are they still going to show up? And
absolutely.
There's a huge kind of up in the air where you start texting people and the dots don't show up, or hey, they don't answer.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like,
No, you're absolutely right.
Maybe you're microanalyzing it, but then, like, when we made the shift, I think there was 2 subcontractors that we didn't work with going forward, and that was it. And one of the best moves I did was deleting all that stuff, thanks to you guys, was deleting it and then just being like, there is no value there. Like, what you thought, those people aren't going back and reading.
Right, I think that's a conversation we had. And we kept reiterating is like, John, it doesn't matter. It came, it went. They know who you are. They know what you do. Moving on.
I just got bummed out that, like, there were certain clients that were able to follow a build. We always did the build hashtag.
Right.
And that people bought houses that we built based on the storyline that was curated on that social media, and that they had no say in us deleting it. Like,
yeah, no, it sucks.
Yeah, I
There's
mean,
no
the emotional
question.
side of it for sure.
Totally
The emotional side sucked. But John, I think to your point, like, I talked to Brian about it, and we were going back and forth, and we were spending real money on lawyers' fees, right? Like that stuff's not free.
Oh,
so
yeah.
it's a business decision, and I'm like, he was fully supportive of whatever route I wanted to take. It's yeah. But I give him all the credit. He's like, listen, I'll stand behind you 100%. Whatever avenue you want to take, you want to fight it, we'll fight it. You want to just let it go, let it go.
But,
and I'm like, well, what do you think? Like, what's your honest opinion? He's like, listen, that whole thing is you. So what does it matter if it was under their umbrella or if it's under our umbrella now? He's like, just delete it and move on. But, like, just like Tyler said to you, he's like, you start over. All right, reset. Just here's the reset button.
Beyond social media, though, what about the print stuff?
Okay, so any of the new stuff that we have in the print is our projects.
No,
and
when
a lot
you
of what we were able to do.
When you started the job, you didn't do. All right, am I assuming that you didn't? We
didn't do print media until I would say about
stuff?
until we had our own projects.
Okay,
and then what we've done is a lot of the print media has been renderings of these projects. So we'll put it out in a rendering in the magazine, with Apex projects on it, which it's a double-edged sword. Some people love rendering. Some people are like, oh, that's awful. Like, you can't put that in print. And, why would you do that? But we're just trying to get brand awareness.
Sure.
So we're just trying to put our name out there. And, this is a really cool project. Like, this is what we're working on.
Whether it's great or mediocre, it's like you're going to know who we are. And
the logo's there.
Yeah, eventually it'll all be great. Sure.
Exactly. It's just having your name in the ring.
Right.
In order to be, on the bid list, so that's just a decision we made. Now that we're finishing things, it's great because we're getting content, and now we're actually like building content to put out there, and that's more enjoyable.
Yeah,
but in the beginning, it's tough.
It's crazy because I remember the ad we didn't put an ad in, but we got an ad in Boston Design Guide, and it was me up against an unfinished building, and I was like, everyone else that's reading this magazine is like. I'm thinking like Tyler's looking at it. Why would you cut the zip like that? Why is there a scene? Like, I'm like over analyzing everything, and I'm like, I'm in a
lapped correctly.
Exactly, like, dude. I was like,
you just blur that out behind me.
Yeah, 150 photos they took, and that's the one they used, and I'm like, God, man. But you're right. Like, it's just, and I think the thing that we don't talk about is brand awareness. There's not that ROI that gets calculated, where it's like, oh, I put that ad in. I got to get something. It might be, I think you said in a previous podcast, it might be 3 years from now that person that was debating on doing a project fell in love with that photo, and then they followed that ad as you guys.
Exactly.
And it's funny, and I'll get a little flack for this reference, but like Vaynerchuk says, it's like stop overanalyzing what you're sharing, even from a print ad. It's like just create awareness about who you are. The moment you start overthinking it, and if you thought about it, you probably would have said, you know what, actually, let's cancel that because I don't want it to be me leaning against Zip because the Zip's all screwed up behind me. And then that ad wouldn't have went in. And whether or not someone saw it, like, you either had a chance at someone seeing the logo or zero chance.
Yeah.
Why didn't you just fix the zip tape?
No, it was just the way the plywood was cut.
And Tyler,
I'll send you a magazine. No, I think it's just
there is that part of it.
It's all of it. I think it's. But I got to tell you, I look at a lot of ads now. Like, I get the same magazines I've had for years to see what people are pushing, because people will trend a certain direction. Like, if you see a lot of guys doing modern, you're like, why is everyone doing modern? It's because that's what architects are chasing. So it's a way of seeing, or someone puts an ad and you're like, dude, your market percentage is this big.
But that's. Now you're just like everyone else.
No, I'm not saying I'm putting ads in. I'm saying I get to look at and try and see what people are trying to do.
No, I know, but I wouldn't base my decision on what I advertise based on what everyone else is doing.
No, totally. I totally agree with you. I like to look at magazines. I don't put ads in,
Right.
but I like to look at them and go, "Where's everyone kind of navigating?"
Sure.
There's some like MERS. They put the same photo in for the last 10 years. And I'm like, but they keep getting bites on that photo. So I get it, but it's like when certain people put in like maybe a reclaimed thing, it's like, dude, you're only getting a certain market, percentage of that.
Sure.
So it's always interesting to see how companies I respect, how they're angling, and
it's funny.
I note it. That's all I'm saying.
I don't know if we talked about it on here, but not recently, a couple months back, I was talking about, I had met with Drew, who does our website and for Modern Craftsman.
He's working on mine too.
And Vintage and mine. But
I heard everybody on here is working on their website, right? Everything's under construction.
Hey, my cover page is working. It's two guys, crossed arms.
Lean it against a zip wall.
So I was talking to Drew, and we were chatting, and I was like, we need to revise the website. And he's like, why? I'm like, I've had 4 inquiries in the last 2 months reaching out for projects that don't fit who we are. And I was like, why is this why aren't they grasping?
What were those projects?
They were like super small, like just like super small remodels, or like, hey, I want a custom bench.
Okay.
Or like a tiny millwork project that we might take, but it's like it was becoming a thing where like that's what they were associating who we were, and I want to gravitate towards focus on large scale renovations. So I was like, wait a second. So I'm on my website, and then I'm on on Instagram, and I'm like, that's what we're promoting. We're promoting like the up close cabinetry drawings and the details that we're putting into cabinetry. Why wouldn't they think we're cabinet makers? Mm-hmm. It's like I need the website. It shows the cabinetry. That's a big part of our business. That's not our business. Our business is home remodeling. And now and it was a very real conversation. It's like, I'm relating it to your comment about reclaimed lumber. It's like there has to be some thought in the sense that you can't, micro promote yourself onto just those little details, because when you do, you become like that's what you're known for, and it becomes confusing to someone that might reach out. Like I had multiple architects reach out, like, hey, I don't really know what you do, but I like what you do. Like, what can you?
Yeah, I mean, you have to appeal to the masses. Yeah, right.
Can you explain?
Because
like,
you don't
are you a GC or are you a carpenter? Like, I was like, the fact that they're asking,
I'm a craftsman, master. Get it right.
The fact that they're asking is like, this is an issue. Like, we're doing a bad job promoting who we are. Like the culture's there, the likability, yeah, that's there, but not,
You should just do a cover page like I do, and have nothing.
Click here.
I think just going back to the whole print thing, and especially your point, Nick, of promoting who you are. We did it originally this year just to get name recognition out there, right? Yeah. But Brian and I have recently talked that we really want to get away from the print media in 2020, or at least minimize it to. We'll do the important magazine, maybe the Cottages and Gardens of our area, let's say, that have the higher draw, that get more architects, architects, designers, clientele looking at that magazine, as opposed to doing like New England Home, which I know is up by you guys too. Yeah. And, like for me to advertise New England Home doesn't matter. Like I'm not going after projects up in your neck of the woods. So why am I going to pay the fee to advertise up in that area?
We'd be screwed, Nick. Might as well get out of the business.
Yeah. See you later.
Oh, he's got a nicer van, man. Look at that van.
I'll get mine wrapped tomorrow, dude. I'll do matte gold.
I'll do it anyways.
No. Oh, there you go. We got the blue with the matte gold. Oh, it is so sharp. Good. I give Brian credit for that.
I do think that there's companies that honestly get great work, caliber work, just by spending tons of money on marketing. You and I both know who we're talking about.
Yeah.
But I do think it helps. I think there is certain people with the right bank account that will use the inside cover as a reference, that if someone's going to devote that much money into the inside cover of every issue, that they're going to call it.
Sure, but at this point, I think they're just maintaining afloat.
Yeah, and I think it also comes down to I specifically want to do targeted networking. Like I would much rather get in with an architect or get an introduction to an architect and go out for drinks or go out to dinner or go out coffee, something where there's that 10, 15 hour, whatever it is, FaceTime with that person is leaps and bounds better than just seeing an ad in a magazine.
Dude,
it's like every ad is doctored at some juncture.
Oh, absolutely. Did you do that skeet shooting event?
We did do the skeet shooting
How'd
event.
that go?
Yeah.
Did someone get shot?
Dude, my shoulder still hurts, bro. It is ridiculous because I went in there like some tough guy, and he's like, "You want the 12 gauge or you want the 14 gauge?" And I'm like, 12 all day, right? He's like, "You sure?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, give me the big boy gun." So he gives me the big boy gun. Meanwhile, it was a house gun, so it didn't have any padding on the butt end of it, and I didn't wear a vest with any padding on it because I've only done this one other time. We shot 18 stations, and my arm was numb after like 12.
I'm good.
I was like, I can't do it.
Fine.
It's fine. I got to the end of it, but people were shaking my hand, and I'm like, wincing in pain. Like, yeah, this is great. Thanks for promoting the event. Awesome. Can't wait to do it next year.
I had Cheney.
You're driving home. It's like, Amazon, please order me a padded vest.
So your goal behind that was what? Did it? I heard it in the Protractor podcast that you were trying to do more events to kind of get that one-on-one. Did it work?
Yeah, because we were able to go out with an owner's rep and an architect, and we were able just to continue our relationship and foster the relationship to more personal than just a business relationship. Because I think once you break that barrier of like, we're all human, let's go grab a beer and let's go, go skeet shooting for this instance. Like you form a different relationship where they become more comfortable relying on you, asking you for things, not them thinking that like it's a favor and then we're looking for a handout in the back end of it.
Interesting.
Because a lot of times, and I think it's across all of our industries that, you do a favor for somebody, they're automatically in their head thinking like, okay, how does this affect me? What are they going to hold this over me for? Do I have to give them that job? Do I have to, put them on that list? Do I owe them something? A lot of the older architects around us are definitely afraid of that. They're afraid of you holding something over them or having something on them. Whereas you break this barrier and it's just a couple of guys going out and shooting at some clay pigeons. Like there was we didn't really even talk shop that day. And it was great because you're there for just hanging out. And it was a Saturday. It was awesome. As opposed to that awkward, like, hey, what projects do you have? What do you think we can bid at? Like, oh, it's awesome. We'll be the best builder on that bid list. That whole thing.
Promises.
Like it wasn't that. It wasn't forced. Let's just put it that way. And when it's not forced, it's enjoyable for everybody.
So
and
I think when I listened to the podcast, you weren't sure what that type of event would cost you compared to like print. If you had to put a price tag on it, that someone else.
It was as much as running a single month in any of the local print media.
So a couple grand.
Or it wasn't it was a couple grand. Yeah. It was. I think it was $4,500. Like. It's completely manageable. It was, and it was something that we get to enjoy too, because I took a couple of our guys with us.
Right.
So not only did I get to break some barriers with the architect and the owner's rep, but I was able to have some good times with people in my company that we don't get to have a good times with because we're so work oriented.
No, you're totally right. I mean, I think last time I did an event, we did like the go-kart racing in Rentham, and that was like $1,000 a day. To do that with five of us and then go to, I think, lunch or dinner, whatever it was. So like, I guess to everyone listening, you're not committing too much to make an event where you then put out yourself to an architect or an owner's rep or a designer that probably not skeet shooting with a designer. Depends on who they are.
Depends on who they are.
Yeah, you never know.
You never know.
But I think it's a cool option. When I heard it, I was like, dude, we don't see that. I mean, we do events more based around the craft than we ever do for networking for profit.
The business.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's it. I mean, you guys have a delicate line to toe because you're doing the Modern Craftsman, but you're also three businessmen that need to promote your businesses at the same time. So I think that's more difficult than me just putting on an event and inviting a bunch of local architects and designers and this and that, but at the end of the day, we're both trying to do the same thing, whether it be for the craft or whether it be to promote ourselves. Mm-hmm. Like it's the same thing. You just got to weigh out, all right, what's your ROI on this event, right? Like the return on investment for us was quality time. We spent 8 hours at that event with that architect. I could never force somebody to hang out with me for 8 hours at a networking event. Like that gets old quick, unless it's a seminar or something like that.
Usually lawsuits involved in like an arrest.
Whatever. But I mean, it was just a lot of not free, but it was a lot of quality FaceTime that you can't get back. And you make that relationship and that'll go way further for the prospect of getting work, I think, than running the ad that month. So let's say. So we were like,
done both, right? He's done that networking for himself, but also for social media. Was that with the last company?
Yeah.
Or was that this one?
Yeah, that was with the last company. We did a meetup. Yeah. Was it back in 2018, and that was awesome, actually. And that was really inexpensive because we had like five different people chipping in for it. Mm-hmm. So it cost us each like $1,000.
But on that, was that more trade and craft?
It was
more like a social event versus, business development.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's what we saw in our meetups, is that it was more of just kind of like a bunch of dudes hanging out, drinking beer, talking shop. But walking away from it, it was everyone, like, everyone got a little FaceTime with each other and like possibly develop relationships. But that's why we morphed this into a podcast, because we were like, all right, all those conversations that the 40 people had, they're now gone.
Yep.
It's like, and then like the same thing, the stories on Instagram, they're gone. Like, how do we make this? How do we have conversations with people and have it live where people can relate to it and listen to it anytime they want? And Johnny.
No, I totally agree. Yeah, that was definitely more geared towards the Instagram in our area was just starting to blossom. It happened later for us here locally. And it was really good because a lot of people just wanted to come out and get some FaceTime with each other that otherwise it wouldn't have happened, because we don't all go to the same events locally. Like, I always try to go to the architect and designer events, but then a lot of the subcontractors are always trying to come to those events to talk to us.
Yeah, they don't get invited to all events.
Not really. It's more of, if you're in that architect community and that design community, you'll get invited to those events. But if you're not, if you're just, let's just say you're the painter, unless you're with the designer at that time, you're probably not going to know about the event in order to go to the event. So I always like to give it, like, I ask for the opportunity to go to architects and designers' offices, and I appreciate the time that they let me in there and talk to them, that I never close my door on a sub that wants to come talk to me and do the same thing. Because it's a give and a take, right? If I can't sit on my throne and just say, hey, listen, I don't have time for you, man. I'm so busy. Like, talk to my office manager and she'll set up, a conference call or whatever, maybe, or we have our favorite sons and we're all good now. If I start doing that stuff, then I can't expect to get any new work from other people that I don't know.
Right.
Because it's just
have your people call my people.
Yeah.
We'll do lunch.
Like, it's just, to me, that's just a scumbag move. Like, I really try to, anybody that reaches out to me, anybody, whether it be through social media, whether it be email or a phone call, like, I try to give them the same respect that I hope to get from the architects and the designers that I want to go after as well. So opening it up, that event that we had opened that up to more of that, where they were actually able to get in touch with more of us builders and contractors in the area than they have before. So I thought it was cool. Some of the people that we did it with didn't really see the return on it. And they're like, listen, it was great. It was a fun night. We all got, hanging out, drinking beers and this and that. They're like, but there wasn't enough architects, or there wasn't enough designers for me to warrant doing this again next year.
Sure.
And I'm like, all right, well, so be it. And we're just looking to,
I think
figure out how to do.
I think the problem with that is those events have to evolve. They can't be one and done. They have to kind of evolve and maybe introduce, we've talked about it before, is, not be at a place to drink beers, and maybe there's a couple of trade kids that are there at schools to kind of, mix in the batch, designers in education, and also younger folks that get it, where there's more exposure. Like, these people could be there, these kids could have their next job opportunity with you guys. If that
I absolutely agree. Exposing it and getting to the next level of the vocal technical schools, and then the hands-on colleges and things like that. Like, that's I would definitely be interested in giving back, because I was very fortunate to grow up into construction, but there are people that just go into construction and they don't have the background that a lot of us have. So I want to give back, and I want to be like, yeah, I'm somewhat successful. Like, how do I help other people and guide them for things that I had no idea how to do? And I see some of the pitfalls. Like, how can I give back a little bit? And I think that's something that, we're trying to do more and more locally. The local building chapter is trying to do it in Connecticut with some of the vocal tech schools, but it's just hard getting off the ground. But I think the events, John, you're right, that do need to evolve more than just a couple of guys drinking at the event, but how do we actually collectively raise the industry and raise the awareness on certain topics within the industry?
Yeah,
because all of us together, we could have a serious drive on pushing things in the right direction.
Yep. I also think that a lot of people, I think, Tyler, we talked about it before, is that there's no like vetting a good GC. Everyone can look good on social, but like when you go to these events, there are always a lot of like-minded people that you don't want to have a kid getting into this that has a really crappy boss, and then they immediately get out of it and they'll rather take a cubicle over this because the opportunity that they got that first time out sucked. So like putting these events together where you get all these people together that are really like-minded and passionate, they should be the people that connected with these kids coming out of school. Sorry, Tyler.
Absolutely.
Did you grow up in Connecticut or Long Island, or neither?
I grew up in Long Island, and then my parents moved to Connecticut when I was 15. So I spent like 2 years in Connecticut in high school, and then I went off to school. I went to two schools. I went to SUNY Delhi, and that was a hands-on vocal tech school, which is awesome. And then I went up to it had a guaranteed transfer program up to Syracuse. So then I finished college in Syracuse, which was also cool because I got to minor in engineering. So I have some of the engineering background. I would never want to take my EIT, although I don't discourage it from anybody taking their EIT. I just could never sit in an office running math calculations all day long.
Are you actually based out of Greenwich now, or you just work in Greenwich?
We are based out of New Canaan, which is like two towns over. And we do a bunch of work in Greenwich, Westport. We're circling Greenwich on all sides. So we're in Westchester, we're in New Canaan, we're in Westport, we're in New York City, we're going out to the Hamptons, we're trying to go down to Florida. So we're trying to go everywhere. Let's put it that way.
And how are you dealing with travel like that?
Westchester's in New York, right?
Yeah, it's just on the other side. It's on the border. So where I am in Connecticut is that little boot, and we're literally at the tip of that boot. So it's like New York is to the west, and then to the east is Stamford, and then to the east of that is New Canaan and everywhere else that we're building.
Yeah, I initially went to Boulder, and like so many kids from Greenwich for some reason went basically to ski out at Boulder. Like parents sent them there to ski. But then at one point I got a ride home from like these kids. They were twins from Greenwich, and they flew me home on their private jet and then put me in like a personal limo and sent me to the Stamford train station. And then I got on like a train back to Philly, and I went from like way up here to the bottom pretty quickly.
Yeah, that is that's the full spectrum. You got the full spectrum right there.
Yeah, but it's crazy the amount of money there, and like it's just, unless you've seen it, unless you've experienced it, I feel like it's hard to wrap your head around.
What drives it?
I don't know. These
New York
kids,
City.
These kids, their parents or their grand.
I think we lost Tyler. Hold on.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'll make a note of it.
The kids that I was talking about, at some point their grandparents had owned the Boston Celtics, so it was like family money.
I know, but why? Yeah. Like, why is it so wealthy there?
Okay, so the big draw to Greenwich, let's say years ago, was that it is 30 to 40 minute train ride to New York City. So it's an easy commute. It's not bad traffic wise. It's about 45 to an hour traffic wise, depending on where you're going in New York City. Mm-hmm. And at the time, it had a lower tax rate than New York. So a lot of people that were making big money in the city were using Connecticut as somewhat of like a tax haven. They were like, oh, okay, well, Connecticut's only 6%. So let me move up to the suburbs. It's an easy, dad can commute. Mom can live the storied life of living on an estate and having the country day school and, everything, the accoutrements that come with living in the suburbs. So it was very attractive for very many years until the recent tax laws are really starting to hurt the local economy, because people are like, all right, well, I'll just stay in New York. I don't need to move to Connecticut. So there's a ton of money here. And I would say the hedge funds are here. There's a bunch of hedge funds all in and around this coast of Connecticut, and a lot of their people live, the bosses and the owners of the funds live in and around the Greenwich area. But they're also now becoming Florida residences and claiming, residency down there. So it's a dynamic shift in the local economy, because they're like, all right, well, I don't need a $10 million house in Connecticut anymore. I can do a $3 million house or a $2 million house, or get a townhouse or something, or just have my place in New York City and become a Florida resident and fly down to Florida. So Connecticut has been going through some turmoil within the past 5 years or longer, just because of the tax laws that's going on.
And I assume the reason you mentioned Florida is probably a previous client looking to move down there?
Yeah, so we have a client that we built the house on the ocean with the glass pool for, and he lives down in Florida, and was like, listen, come down, check it out. I'll fly you down on the private plane, and you can, go look at the areas. And we're like, all right, you're going to fly us down? We'll go down. So we went down, enjoyed the day down in Florida. And I was talking to Brian about it. I was like, you know what? Yeah, why not? Like, let's plan for the future. So the biggest thing with moving down to Florida is that, like, you need to have boots on the ground, because you can't satellite it from, 1,000 miles away.
I guess
isn't Vanilla Ice down there?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so. Well, I have no idea where, but I think so.
So what is that? How does that structure work? Like, what map out how you would create that office down in Florida for this? So
we're in the infant stages of figuring all these nuts and bolts out on how we want to do it. I know Brian ultimately wants to move down that way, and I'm like, okay, so if he wants to move down that way, that makes sense to start laying some of the groundwork now for that. And so that this way, when he does do that, we can just literally hit the ground running. So we're trying to figure out, okay, where in Florida? East Coast, West Coast? Is it, Palm-Dade County, or is it like the Naples area? And there's a huge difference between East Coast and West Coast, and then within that coast, North and South. So we're really just trying to figure out where's the best place to angle and target to get to where we want to be as a company down in that market, and where he wants to live down there, because ultimately he's going to be running that thing while I run this thing up here. Well, so it's like, all right.
What do you think about, boots on the ground is one thing for supervision, but like having the sub pool,
right?
That's what brings the absolute value from us, is that the sub pool that we have in our areas is top notch, and it's been vetted for years or decades.
No, you're absolutely right.
How do you explain that?
That was it's funny you bring that up, because that was my biggest thing of concern of going down there, was because you're only as good as the quality you produce, right? So I don't know the framer down there, and everything's different. Let's just call a spade a spade. Like,
it's all
I'm a good builder.
It's all block.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a good builder in Connecticut and New York or whatever, but like going to Florida, it's just like the building is way different. Right. And it's just, I'm out of my depth on it, and I'm not going to just, drop in there and be like, all right, I know what I'm doing here, and I'm the best guy around here, and give me that house to bid on, and it'll be beautiful for you. So yeah, vetting out subs, it's going to be a process, and it's going to be a thing. Fortunately, a lot of our finished subs, so like our tile guys, our painters, our plasterers, even some of our trim guys, already do the reverse commute down there for specific projects. So I know that we have some talent that we can use down there. Now, whether I want to use that on a consistent basis, if we have an office down there, that's a different thing, because,
what do you mean they do not a lot of commute for projects?
Well, so a lot of them live up here, but are working down there. Let's say, especially in the wintertime. Gotcha. So they'll reverse commute back up here for a project, or they'll be down there and they'll commute up this way or that way, vice versa.
That's a huge jumping off point. Huge.
It is. But, at the same point, like, they only have so many guys, right? So if they're already down there for a project and they have 6 guys that they're working
skills trades gap.
Well, there's that someone may not have mentioned. But, I don't want to get behind the 8 ball and then be trying to rob Peter to pay Paul, and then just playing catch up. So, because if you're not doing good at what you claim to do good at, what's the point in doing it in the first place? Mm-hmm. It's like, I don't want to go down there and be mediocre. I want to go down there and bring what we have up here down there.
So how do you bridge that gap? Like, do you network with architects down there, same way you did here?
Yeah, because a bunch of the architects from up here build down there.
Yeah.
So a bunch of like the New York City architects, and I think it was Brett Hull was talking about the ICFF or the ICAA, right? So we're an ICAA member, and the the bonus of being an ICAA member is that you have access to at least a list of other ICAA members and or architects so that you can go after that, because these guys are the bigwigs in the architecture community that are pumping out continuously big builds. And a lot of them are all over the place. So they're not just the office may be in New York, but they're working in Vail, they're working in LA, they're working in Palm Beach, like they're all over. So they have a good network of work that you can try to tap into. And if you're in the club, let's call it for lack of a better word, like it makes it a lot easier to get in front of them, because if you're a verified member, they're like, oh, all right, well, at least they're an ICAA member. Yeah, let me take that phone call and set up that lunch and see where this could go, and see how we can collaborate together on something. And I think that's something that we're trying to work and gear more towards setting up and doing, is figuring out next steps on how to actually do that, how to bridge the gap.
What's your time window, expectation wise?
I don't have one specifically, because I want to focus on.
That's a good PM right there. No expectations.
Right, was that as vague and as decisive as possible? Are you
going to be down there this week, or
maybe?
It'll happen when it happens, when it's meant to happen. No, honestly, I mean, it's over the course of the next few years. Like, it's not something that I can definitively say within the next 3 months we're going to be building down in Florida.
I think the fact that Brian wants to move down there plays a huge role, because we had a client reach out, and he lived, I think it was Naples or maybe Tampa, I forget, but they had reached out and said, we'd love you to build.
There's a big difference.
I know, and I don't remember where it was, but they wanted
it's probably Naples.
They
not
wanted
Tampa.
They wanted
us Tampa.
They wanted us to build a house, and
sorry, Tampa.
And I was like, I'd love to do it. I have no idea how I do that. And my same thing. My biggest concern is like, yeah, I can put a PM there, or I could schedule a fly down there X amount of times a week and build that in. But the trades,
that would kill your business here.
Of course,
to do that.
Yeah, and honestly, that wasn't even. I didn't even consider that. I strictly considered, how do I maintain the quality when I don't have any relationship with these subs?
Yeah.
No, but I think that what John said, that is one of the biggest reasons why in the beginning I wasn't on board 100% with it, because I was like, all right, listen, we're a new business. We need to focus 1,000% of our efforts on right here, right now. And if we are even the least bit distracted, then, we could pitfall somewhere here.
Right.
But Brian was like, well, listen, as good as it sounds, and it's not that I don't disagree with you, he's like, but we also do have to look towards the future, because now we're not just, we're not just completing the project, we're growing a business. So it's like, what's the next steps? Okay, let's go down there. So we went down there. And one of the most interesting things that kind of swayed me in the other direction was, we were driving up Port Royal down in Naples. And it's like the exclusive area in Naples, and there's all these intercoastal areas. So you drive down the street, and every third house was under construction. And every third one of those third houses, there was only 2 companies down there building. Like, it was the same 2 company signs on every third house, let's say, right? So we were like, what is going on?
Sounds like
so
New
we
Jersey.
were driving. Oh, it was
ECS's
kind of
neighborhood.
scary. So we go out, we're literally leaving, and to get out of the neighborhood, and a woman was like, we were being creepy, like we were stalking like the house, and we were looking at this next project going up, and there was a woman walking her dog, and I think she thought like we were following her or something. And so we were like, Ryan reached out to her and was like, sorry, we're not being creepy, we're literally just checking out the area. And she's like, oh, you guys aren't from around here, are you? And we're like, no. She's like, oh, I'm from Greenwich. And we're like, that's funny, we're from Greenwich. And she's like, what are you guys doing down here? I'm like, oh, we're telling a story, we're builders, blah, blah, blah. She's like, you have to move down here. She's like, we need builders like you down here. She's like, the guys down here, they only do the one thing and they repeat it over and over and over again. And she's like, in the trades, they only know how to do that one thing over and over and over again. She's like, my builder told me no on 3 different things, where is with, for us, we never say no. We'll figure it out, but we won't point blank just say no, And she's like, and the builders, they really hold all the cards, because they're doing so much work down there that they're like, all right, well, no, I'm sorry. It's going to take a year to get to you. And like, a year? Like, it's a 10,000 square foot house. Let me figure something out. I'll be here tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like, It's not going to take us a year. And that kind of mentality, we were like, all right, well, if the opportunity is here, how long does that opportunity last for? Right. What do we really get? How can we really make it work? And how can we look at it from afar, but manage it, just like we do our projects at home? And that's where we kind of get held up on, Nick, because it's like, yeah, how do you manage that quality relying on a drywall guy that's down in Florida that doesn't care about you because you're a one-off to him, right? As opposed to upsetting his big builders that are doing 10 jobs on the same street, you know? So I don't know yet. It's a work in progress. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I definitely have that option to go to Kiawah Island for my architect.
Yeah.
So it's like that. I was asking all those questions because I'm definitely interested because I feel the same thing. Like 2 years in, I want to scale down the amount of work that we're doing, but be able to have the option to scoot down there. Probably, my approach would be to scoot down there 2 to 3 times a year, so that way the subs that are down there get to know who I am. That I'm not just popping down once. Not saying that's you guys, but just I want a face to be there where they're like, oh, so you're with the architect, you know what you're doing. I want to learn from you guys, so I respect how you guys do things, not take my mentality down from Massachusetts down there. But there is opportunity there. I don't know when, but it's always been there. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, no, Kiawah Island's great.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, that's
Florida's market, but Kiawah's like it's besides the ocean rising, that's the only thing that's changing out there.
Yeah,
the values.
No, and I think you get into those niche markets. So you do Kiawah Island, you can do West Palm Beach, Naples. Like you get into those little pockets that will always have wealth building. Like even when the recession hit, I was in the Hamptons back in 2008. Like it slowed down, but it didn't stop. Like there was no way that it just, shut off. It just got less obvious. It wasn't a 20,000 square foot house anymore. It was a 10,000 square foot house. And still, that sounds grotesque to the average person. But when you're literally surrounded in the Hamptons by 20,000 square foot houses, and then you build a 10,000 square foot house, all right, that's a modest downturn in the economy of what's going on.
Right.
And it's
this is
I know
great
it's
Gatsby
funny.
crap.
But that's the mentality in those niche markets. So in Kiawah Island, there will always be that 10,000 square foot, $800,000, $900,000 square foot project. It's always going to be within that market. But once you start getting outside of that market is when it gets scary.
Justin Timberlake just bought 3 lots and combined them on the beach.
Where?
In Kiawah.
Oh wow, there you go. I heard that Tom Brady is moving to Greenwich. How about that?
Wow.
Yeah, he was house hunting in Greenwich and Alpine, New Jersey.
You're gonna go back.
And
you're gonna go back to your cold calling, huh?
Goddamn right I am. Listen, they build some nice houses. So
to that point, right, Chris? You made a comment a second ago saying if she wanted a 10,000 square foot house, I'll figure it out. I'll be here tomorrow. So let's bring that back to Greenwich. If someone calls you and says, "Hey, I got a 10,000 square foot house. I want to build. Everything's ready. We'll start tomorrow." What's your capacity at? Because you said earlier you're running 10 jobs right now. I don't know how many PMs you have. Is it, I'll take that job. I'll start tomorrow and we'll figure it out. Or are you hiring another PM? Like, what's your
it's funny. I knew this was coming. I knew this was coming. I was forecasting it. So I like Johnny are running lean, let's say, because of we just don't want it overinflate and get too big too quickly, right? And we're only a year into it together, and we have 8 employees right now, and we don't want to jump the boat just for the project.
Hold on.
Sure.
So what's the definition of lean?
1 van, 8 employees.
Tyler might have
something
to say about that.
I think I have 3 PMs, or I know I have 3 PMs, and then I have 3 site people, and then myself and my business partner.
So you have jobs
so that's the 8 of us.
Without Apex on site?
No, because I'm on site every day on almost every job. And my PMs, my site guys.
But when you leave, there's jobs that are happening throughout the day that there's not an Apex employee on.
Yeah. So we took on a couple of smaller jobs that didn't require full-time management, and we went into it, and the owners agreed that they didn't want to pay for full-time management. The architects agreed that the scope of work, they didn't need somebody sitting in a trailer while we're doing a bunch of cabinetry work, let's say, and they didn't want the overhead and the price for it. So at that point, it was good for us because we were able to take on a few of those smaller jobs to build up, more work done with that architect, more content, obviously, just for the company, and more experience for our guys, and to be able to teach them certain things on different jobs.
Sure.
So the fortunate thing is that a couple of those, 3 of those are ending within the next 6 weeks, so that it opens us up, and we're looking at right now exploring and looking into other bigger projects. Because ultimately what we want to do is get back to the bread and butter of what I was working for originally, and what Brian was working on was much bigger scale projects. where we can literally set up a site guy and he's there full time for 1.5 to 2 years and have a dedicated PM working on that job, maybe splitting his time between that job and one other job. And that's it. And that's what we want to do. And we want to do, I would say anywhere of 4 to 6 of those type projects a year, and not, and throw in a couple smaller things here and there to fill the gaps, but not be as crazy as we are right now. We're all working 12-hour days, 6 days a week. And it's like, holy crap, Thanksgiving just happened. Christmas is in 3 weeks and I got 3 projects due 2 weeks after that. And like, how the hell is everything getting done?
So my question to you is the same question I have for myself. So don't think I'm projecting it onto you. I probably am. Is that why do 10? Why not just stay actually lean and be you and Brian and keep it 1 or 2 products? Like, I know when I started the business, I was saying yes to everything because I was like, I didn't know what my fees, my cost, everything was going to be. So I was like, yeah, you want to do that? I can start in 2 weeks. And then it came to a point where about a year in, we were like, we can't say yes to everything anymore. Like, we had to tell people that we're a couple.
We're there.
But why not?
Yeah.
And now I'm back to, like, I had the conversation with Ben today. I'm like, if the jobs that we're getting right now, I'd rather do 2 for the entire company and have 4 of us, 2 products, and that be it. So, like, how are you handling that? How are you able to negotiate what's coming on where it's like, all right, it's another. Like, what's small? Is it $300,000? Is it the art pavilion that's like, I don't know, crazy money?
The art pavilion was like, no, it wasn't crazy money. Well, it's crazy money. Yeah. It was like 1.6 for that art pavilion. Like, and it's a 40 by 40 cube. But I mean, when you look at the details there, you're like, yep, I get it. When you step back and look at it, like, everything is dialed into an exact where the architects are coming out with micrometers measuring, the gap distances that we have on our reveals around doors and windows and stuff like that. So it's like, yeah, that is every bit of that price.
Like, so how do you give that to someone that's not you? Like, that's my biggest thing. Like, we have some products that are coming online where it's like, conversation I had with Ben is like, if we get this job coming online that I'm working with, the only person I want on that job is you. Meaning Ben. Like, yeah. So, like, how do you give up? Like, that can go 1 or 2 ways: unbelievable execution or an absolute lawsuit that crushes your company. How are you able to? Yeah, I feel you. How are you putting a PM on that and not you? When I know you have to grow a business, but that's a huge risk.
Huge risk. So we have a PM that's with us now that came over from another company, younger guy, he's really into it, super dedicated, and he's learning things as we go through the project, and we're just trying to be with him and help him through different, let's say, aspects of getting the RFIs out on time and just making sure he's asking the right questions so that he doesn't have the pitfalls that I went through or that Brian went through, because at the end of the day, the only way that I learned through was with experience, right? And I think a lot of us are the same way. Is like, let me make that mistake once, and then from there, I'll get it, or I don't. And that it's like the I don't is the problem part, that we want to try to avoid. And yeah, we're a year in, or just over a year in now, and we're figuring out those things that we need to be better at. And we're also figuring out, like you said, John, it's like, I can't take every job that we're looking at, like, but it's a fine line, right? Because you have to build up enough work in the hopper to forecast next year to support salaries and trucks and overhead and everything else. But you also can't take on too much so that you don't have a life. Yeah. Like right now, like I said, it's, we're working 12-hour days. I'm trying to coach basketball for my son on the weekends. And it's just like, that's the only other thing that I'm doing besides working. And it sucks because I used to ride my bike all the time. I used to go mountain biking every Wednesday night. I used to ride my road bike every weekend. Like, I haven't done that consistently since before I started the company.
Gary Vee would tell you to fuck off.
Yeah, I know. And it sounds like I'm whining, and I'm really not trying to whine about it, but I'm just trying to say, like, yeah, these are the things that nobody can prepare you for. Like, nobody will tell you that, yeah, you're sitting at your computer from 6 a.m. and then all of a sudden your day starts in the field at 7, and then you get back to your computer at 6 p.m. and you're like, holy crap, I got 3-4 hours of stuff I need to get done. And then, oh yeah, I have a wife and 4 kids at home that need me too. Like, there's not enough time in our days to actually do all of this. But so how are we going to do it better?
You know what's crazy is that you said, like, we've all started with companies and we all had that learning curve. I don't know of any of us that ever had that learning curve with a company that was months into a livelihood. Like, that's a whole different game. Like, I think every company I ever worked for was well established, where if there wasn't a micro issue or whatever, it wasn't going to cost something huge. Like, that's my big thing right now, is that's why we didn't hire anyone for the first year, is because we wanted that to be, that is our livelihood. Every project that comes out of the business for that first year is what everyone's going to look at us in every magazine, article, Instagram, whatever, repost for the next 2 years. So, like, it is critical that in those relationships, like you talk about, they are crucial. So, like I was talking with Ben today, that this really cool project's coming online, or even our Carlisle project, where it's like, that has to be managed by me. So, like, I need to have John step up in our Wellesley stuff so I can be there not as frequently. But it's a really tough balance where it's not an I thing or a me thing. But, like, I look at Tyler all the time, where it's like he controls 100% of his product. And these people trust us 110% of what we do, but yet we're giving that off to other people that aren't us. And that's a very, very tough thing to do, where I know this could be my next 10 years.
Absolutely. I think it's the hardest thing to do for me specifically, is like, I'm not a micromanager, but I'm kind of somewhat of a control freak. And like, I know how A plus B equals C on a lot of things. And if, handing it off to the ex sub, it's just a job for them, and I'm not micromanaging it, that's the scariest thing for me, because it's just like you're saying, like, at the end of the day, that piece, however it turns out, is the representation of your company for however long, right? That's your mark on that project. So it has to come out good right now. And that's why we are all putting all this time in these 12-hour days in right now, just to make sure that does happen. But at the same respect, like, I'm realizing it the hard way that I'm getting burnt out doing it. And I need to figure out a way, and Brian and even our guys, like, we need to figure out a way to be more efficient, be more productive with the time that we have, but C, also be like, all right, it's 6 o'clock, or it's 5 o'clock, or it's 4 o'clock. And like, that's it. I'm done for today. I got to go deal with, I want to go hang out with my kids, or they got a doctor's appointment, whatever it is. Like, we have lives. Like, this isn't supposed to consume us.
Right. I mean, you're a year in. I think you're already ahead of the curve in many aspects, and even just the mindset of knowing that needs to change now. I mean, most people, it takes years, or they never figure that out.
Or a heart attack, or a divorce.
Right. Where it's like you're aware of it. And I think, there's a part of it that the 13 years at the other company probably play a big role in that. But being able to jump, I shouldn't say right into the market that you were with the other company, because you've alluded to the fact that you've taken on smaller jobs to fill the gaps, but you want to get back to the bread and butter. But being already on track,
totally.
Like, you're already on track to do that. You and I have talked offline. It's like, I'm like, dude, like, the art pavilion job, like you just mentioned, it's just like, who is that for, and how did you go from leaving a company to building that thing? And it's like, that's all I look at. You posted on your story, I'm pausing that story, and I'm like, that thing's perfect. I'm like, that I can see the shadow, the reveals and stuff. But it's like, you went right into that, and you're a year in, and you're already totally self-aware of the fact that your mentality has to change, and you need to make sure that you are guiding this company and the culture of that company to be, healthy, I think would be the right word.
Yeah, no, and it's a thing that Brian and I talk about all the time, because we want to take a step back in the daily operations stuff, not disconnect, but just a step back, like we talked about before. And it's just like, okay, how do we do that? And then what are we doing to do that and make it actually happen? Because we can all sit and talk about it, but until you actually, get it off the pot and make it happen, like it doesn't mean anything. So that's what we're trying to figure out now and work for next year, is like, we don't want to just take on everything just to take it on. Like, cash flow is great, and cash flow is super important. But at the end of the day, if you're messing things up and redoing things and having to do things multiple times, and you don't have that cash flow anyway, so what's the point in taking that project on if it's not going to get done, quickly, concisely, correctly? Right. You know what I mean? So, and that's Johnny, to your point, like, that is it's been eye-opening, I would say, for the past probably 6 to 8 weeks from Brian and my perspective. It was like, okay, listen, we got together based on our reputations. We were able to hit the ground running with some amazing work. Now let's not fuck this up, for lack of a better word, and screw the pooch on this. Like, let's take a step back, take a breather, and figure out, okay, great, how do we keep going on where we want to go with the company and the brand, and make that happen, as opposed to just doing volume. Like, I don't want to do volume anymore. We did volume just for cash flow for this first year, but I want to get away from that. I want to figure out.
It can happen by accident. Great. Like, it can totally happen by accident that you're like, oh no, I want to make you happy, and you get in this happy, I want to make everyone happy thing, and you're like, it's not going to hurt us, it's going to give us more cash flow. And then when you're in the meat of it, where it's like, God, why is this product that's $200,000 requesting 2 site meetings a week? It's like,
it's brutal.
Yo, did I get the wrong memo? And then then it totally screws the pooch on everything else. I don't know. I think the biggest thing, I forget where I watched this or whatever, but like police officers come up to your window and they're supposed to slow everything down so it doesn't escalate. And what I took away from that is that's our job, all of us as owners, walking onto a project, onto a bid, looking at whatever situation is at hand, is that we're not supposed to escalate it. We're supposed to slow things down enough that we can take on things at a different level. And it's like the Matrix. Like, you can just slow it all down and be like, all right, that's going to happen next. I can dodge that punch in the next 2, and then keep going. And if you come in the job like guns blazing, you're leaving that place as an aftermath. Like, it's gonna, like, and it's really tough to. You want to bring energy into it, and I struggle with this all the time. And I'm always like, how do I walk in, still give the energy, like high fives and whatever, and get people amped up, but also be like, hey, what are we looking at? Like, find me in the corner. Yeah. I've got so many clients.
You can't be the Tasmanian devil all the time. Yeah. Like, you got to go in there and
nice
be level-headed about
reference.
It.
But it's tough. Like, a lot of my clients have been like, they'll tell my new clients, yeah, you might find John just sitting in the stairs in the dark trying to figure, like, he started when it was light out in that position, looking at something, and now I've now been there long enough that they've caught me like trying to figure something out, because you do want to slow things down. And I think that's key for everyone listening, is that when it is, you can't always go at that pace. Something's going to give, whether it's your family, your health, or the project. You have to slow down and understand what's going on, because if you don't, it's going to force you to do it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I completely agree. And I think one of the things that I've kind of learned to do is be as calm and as cool and as level-headed as possible, especially with problems out on site. Like, our job is 99% problem solving. And I enjoy when there's an issue and figuring out, like, how to work around that, and how do we get through that, and what's the creative ways to give the architect and the owner exactly what they're looking for. But, okay, maybe it wasn't drawn the way that we can actually build it, right? Which happens all the time. So, like, those are my most fun days on site, is when I'm actually able to work through that. And I'm trying to teach my guys not to freak out about that stuff. Like, it's construction. It's not brain surgery. Like, let's just, like you said, John, slow it down. Let's just look at all the parts and pieces involved, and let's figure out how to get from A to B.
But
like, that's it. And then go from B to C.
I don't want to cut you off, but I think of, like, I think the person that does it the best besides Tyler, because he can manage everything, is John Marley. Like, there's no one I know that's looking at prints that aren't actually going into production for like months. Like, he's got nuts and bolts and blah, blah, blah. He's talking like Russian about all these details. And it's like, what are we talking about? But I think there's so many people that are doing just what you said, is that they're putting out fires. As a manager, we should only be putting out the things that slip through the cracks, not everything. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, what they do now is putting out everything on the spot, where it's like, how much can we get through ahead of time that we've found RFI, whatever, that it's a month in advance, that when we finally get in the install, we're talking that if 1% squeaks through, that's what we're putting out that day, where it's never really a fire. It's smoldering. That's why like, when people say putting out the fire.
It's being proactive.
Yeah.
It's just being proactive on it, and just teaching the guys what's the pitfalls to look out for. and with the younger crowd, like I have younger guys that work with me, so I have to be the one to tell them, like, okay, let's get the stone slab shop drawings going for all the countertop edge details and the layouts and the pictures with the slabs and blah, blah, blah. Like, let's start that process now, because we know it takes forever to get through, so that this way we're not standing there saying, I need this decision tomorrow because it's going to affect the schedule. Like, that's really what we're trying to avoid.
Do your PMs all have degrees, or they just have experience?
Both degrees and experience.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, and some of them just have like 2-year degrees. One of them has got a 4-year degree. And then like our lead guy, Ivan, which Nick referenced before, he's been working with me for 13 years. And it's like his degree was literally learning in the field. Yeah. And he's taken it better than I could ever possibly have done it. Let's just put it that way. And when you have one of those, oh man, hold on to them for as long as you possibly can. You got to do whatever you can to keep that person, because they just literally, he completes the sentence for me just because we've had that relationship. I'm sure, John, it's like you working with Benny. Like, you don't have to ask him what's happening next. Like, he's already thinking next and you're thinking right after that, So like, I was very fortunate that he came with me to the new company. And he's running the biggest project that we have right now, which is awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's good.
That
stressful.
That came full circle right there.
Yeah. We did a pretty good job.
One question I'm peeking at Johnny's notebook over here is, do you think that your construction management degree helped you? Because that's a question we get. I mean, a lot of times people ask, should I go to college? Should I get a construction management degree? Is it worth it? Do you feel as though...
I think we talked about this earlier before the podcast. Your last podcast I listened to, you said that you were bulletproof, and Nick immediately agreed that once he got out of college...
Yeah, I remember. Like, I took I was a assistant super and then an assistant PM, and I'm walking the job. I'm like, yeah, I got a degree. I'm this $180 million job. I got this. This is mint. And then I started my own company. I'm like, I don't got this.
Oh crap! I got to do what? I think for me, I'm going to speak for me personally. I grew up in construction. So my uncle and my grandfather was in the trades in New York City. They were both carpenters there. My dad was on the finance side of construction. So construction has always been like where I was going. Like, there wasn't, for my episode, there wasn't much of an option. But one thing that my grandfather always instilled in me is like, listen, I don't want you swinging the hammer your whole life. He's like, I want you to go to school for it, learn the nuts and bolts on how to grow, own a business, run a business, be in a business, whatever, do whatever you want to do in the business side, and then go into the trades and figure out from there. So I always knew I was going to go into construction. I went into the trades, or I went into the vocal tech side first, because I wanted to just get more nuts and bolts on how these things go together. Because for me, there's nothing worse than when people join a conversation where they think they're the smartest person in the conversation, and they are absolutely way off base and have no idea how the thing actually goes together. Right. Whereas, I'd rather approach it, be like, listen, I'll hear everybody out, and then I'll tell you exactly why I want to do it my way, or we should do it your way, or whatever. I'll hear all sides of the story out, and then we can opine on the fact of which way is better and which is the correct way to do it. But I'm not going to be the guy that just comes in there and says, nope, we're doing it this way because of X, Y, and Z. But I think when I first got out of school, I was like, yeah, I went to school for this. I know how to frame a roof. And then I was doing framing. I'm like, I have no freaking idea how to cut a rafter. Like right. You could say you know how to frame a roof because it looks easy on paper and it says 10 and 12 and it says it's 30 feet long, and okay, great. And you put the ridge here and it goes there, da 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 da. I wanted to get all that experience, at least in the technical side in school, just so I had some background on it.
Yeah.
And then I took that and I did what I think is important, and I wish that more schools would do, is internships throughout the breaks, throughout the winter break, throughout the summer break, and internships that are paid. So, because everybody needs to survive, but to the fact of like, okay, so if you want to be a builder, go work for a builder, or specifically, here's an even better one, an architect. Some of the best architects that I've worked with have worked in the trades prior to becoming an architect, because they know how the thing kind of goes together. They don't need to know all the intricacies of it, but they grasp it. And then there are the architects that are literally just paper design architects that literally will sit back in their office and tell you that will work. You can put that rafter there. And you're like, you can't do that. The geometry doesn't work. Come in the field and show me how to cut that.
Right.
Where it doesn't work. So I wish more of the architectural schools would push going into some of the construction trades for a semester, or for, your summer internships and things like that, just so that they get some experience in the field. Because I think it's invaluable what you can actually learn just by sweeping the floors and watching things go together, you know? And like that's how I started.
Yeah. I feel like the pace of everything is changed so much that looking around part is gone. It's lost. It's really tough to pay people and get the people to slow down. I mean, I had that kid from North Bennett, and I paid him just to watch somebody, and he couldn't do that. I found him in a closet with a headset on, headlamp, doing baseboard, and I'm like, what the? Like, I'm paying you to watch a carpenter put a set of stairs in that I would have killed. I would have taken no money that week when I was a carpenter to be able to watch someone dig into their tool belt and into their knowledge to do that. And I wanted to give that back, and people were so eager to become a carpenter that they didn't want to take the apprenticeship seriously and look at it. And it was a bummer.
That's unfortunate.
I think the pace of everything in construction has just gone so fast that how do you slow down?
You know what it is too is, and I see it a lot locally, into something that Tyler alluded to before, was that this market specifically, like, it's hard to get local kids interested in coming into the trades. Like, we're building for their parents, so they, it's a different class, let's say, a different in the caste system, just to root it down to that level, so that locally, like, we have to go to a different town to try to bring in some talent, and then at their rate, they're like, well, yeah, I could do that and work in construction, or I can go back to school and go work at that hedge fund, and you can build me that house that you just wanted me to work at in a few years, and getting around that mentality is like a huge issue for us locally.
Just mention AI, and that will all be dead in like 5-10 years. Hedge funds.
Yeah, but there's some things like AI, like you've talked about before, there will never be an AI plumber. Like, Agreed. It's never going to happen. Somebody's got to unclog the toilet at some juncture. I don't think it's going to be a machine.
Dude, look at mechanics.
At least in our lifetime.
Mechanics.
I think my last plumber thought he was AI.
No, I think the follow up with that question is just, do you think after you got past that honeymoon stage of, with the cape on, that you think you were a Superman with the degree? Do you think it cut back on, like, I look at, like, Nick and I were talking before the podcast, is that, like, if I had done, like, night classes for business, could that have taken 4 years of a learning curve of being in the field, learning the business end of it, where, I know how to use spreadsheets, I know how to use QuickBooks, would it have been easier, like, for me to come out of school as a construction manager, knowing Excel the way I did, looking back now, was a huge benefit to me. Being able to track more stuff, having that knowledge that I was able to track all of it and use it, verbatim in the next job, that was a huge asset.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think we should, not so much college, but knowledge, meaning someone could look for night classes or whatever.
Absolutely. I would say the biggest things that I got out of school really was on the business side, the business side and the construction aspect of it, was like learning how to schedule and learning how to do like mock schedules. Like, so we did it, and we were doing it in Microsoft Project at the time, which I still love because I know how to use it. I love it because I know how to use it really well. Yep. But like, I would have never have gotten that if I didn't go to school.
Predecessor, successor.
So,
starts
exactly.
And finishes.
But the difference between then and now is like, all right, I can no BS say that it's going to take the sheetrock guys, 2 weeks to do something. Whereas there, I'm just playing with durations and being like, oh, maybe it looks good in 2 days, and just filling in little Gantt charts and making it look like it works. But now it's like, no, extend that one out, start this one halfway with a hold to date and a this and a milestone like that. That knowledge is priceless from my aspect.
But like my aspect, like a kid digging into that now, knowing how the predecessors and successors work, and highlighting that critical path. Like, I use the word critical path like it's going on.
Yeah, but nobody understands what critical path is. That's the biggest thing, John. Is like, you could say that to seasoned vets, and we all get it. We're like, okay, that is literally digging the hole, pouring the concrete, doing the framing, doing the roofing. Like, we get that. Yeah. But there's people that literally, they don't understand when you say critical path, and they're like, all right, so does that mean I need to make a decision like at any point on that? Like, what does that mean to people? What does critical path
I think
mean?
Schedules like that's one of the hardest things in our industry. I mean, you're putting hundreds of people together with considering human error and human inefficiencies, and then putting it on paper
and the weather
and committing to it. It's and exactly what you said. It's like you start by, assuming that something takes X amount of time, only to do that 1, 2, 3, and then realize, on the fourth time, it's like, I'm wrong every time. Like
I'm way off on this.
Let's look back and see historically what this actually took.
But if you're forced to revise those,
right,
like you're made aware of it again, going back to the simple systems that when you have to then fix that Gantt chart and then watch when you change a duration and then watch the entire thing highlight and it effectively changes everything, you're like, holy crap.
Right.
What did I just
as long as you have everything linked and you built your Gantt chart right.
Yeah, dude, I think I've been using the same Gantt chart since college. I think I've been using the same build, and I just been changing it and changing it and changing it, and then running it with. I love the thing.
I'd say that, but some of the things, I mean, that's all experience based, right? Yeah. Let's just call a spade a spade. Like the only way I'm good at making those schedules now is because I've been doing it for this many years. Yeah.
School gives you the basics. It gives you a head start on understanding how the system works, but applying the systems.
But like the guys that I was doing co-ops and I was a carpenter. If I told Tommy with his hatchback truck that, hey, can you break out the Gantt chart? Dude,
I think if you say that now, you'll still get the crooked side eye. Like nobody's, there's a limited range on who's going to understand what the Gantt chart is and what it's there for and what it means.
Yeah, but I think it's the same as
schedule. Like, okay,
yeah, but I think it's the same as like understanding moisture content with these houses being so tight that before we used to say it was like a 7-day acclimation period. We were just guessing, and I think
totally.
A lot of schedules are guesses as well. But putting it on paper puts you on a highway, puts you on a paved, with directionals, asphalt highway that otherwise you're running through the woods.
Right.
And you just.
I completely agree. The biggest thing that we have, the biggest hurdle that we have is what you alluded to before. I think it was early on was, updating the schedule. And when you get to X amount complete, like it doesn't matter anymore about updating it. You have to work backwards from when you need to be finished to it. So like we have one project right now that keeps getting bumped out because we have this subcontractor that is a national subcontractor that does these specialty floors that wants nothing to do with this tiny little job. But the architect has specified him. The owner really loves the product. This guy's the only guy in the States that can get this product. And it's a tiny master bathroom. And he's doing giant, 30,000 square foot, retail spaces. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to be there in October. And then it's like, yeah, I'm going to be there in November. And it's like, yeah, no, sorry. I got to push you off. I got to come in December. It's like, how do you plan for that? Right. So we're trying to,
more importantly, what is that product?
Yeah, it's called Fusion Floors. It's epoxy. It's an epoxy coated urethane based flooring. And this guy we're doing it in this master bathroom, and it's going to be the wet and dry areas of the master. So the whole thing gets this coating. So you really can't do anything else on the walls or anything because you got to do the epoxy and roll it up the walls first, and then lay all your tile and do your layouts and everything else.
Wow.
So
I'm gonna pull a tile. That's the stuff you get at Home Depot, right? The bucket.
Yeah.
It's like the garage.
Yeah. You just roll it up.
That guy just installs it better.
So I'm trying to work with my guys.
3/8?
It's a 3/8 nap. Yep, and you just roll that right up the edge there. But no, honestly, like this guy has killed our schedule, and we keep going back to the owner saying that, yeah, listen, we could use a different product, we can go to a different vendor, we have other opportunities to explore other things.
I would have figured out how to do that myself a while ago.
Dude, we tried, Tyler. We even reached out to the manufacturer, but the problem is that we would be able to buy the product in 14 weeks after we completed their training. And we're like, all right, well, that's not really a viable option anymore. So I guess we're not going down that route. So it's been killing us. And I keep telling my guys, like, all right, let's work backwards and let's figure out, okay, we need to get them in by Christmas. When is this going to happen? Let's figure worst case scenario just so that we can get this past the finish line to the point of where we are going to do and install all the other finishes and leave off the lower band of tiling, and leave off the shower glass and leave off all the other stuff until the guy comes and does what he's got to do. And it sucks because I hate being pigeonholed by, the subcontractor when we have no control. And this is one of like the only experiences I've had in a very long time where this guy literally has the only avenue to this product that they want to use.
And I feel like that's a good business to start.
I think there would be a good market for this material if you got more people to specify it. So it's a super modern looking project that we're doing, and this product is like a urethane coating, and the architect fell in love with it, and he convinced the owner to fall in love with it, which is fine. It's great, except for that we're at the mercy of this installer, and he's the only installer in the U.S. And it's like, all right. So from that guy's perspective, is he going to take the 30,000 square foot target, or is he going to take the 200 square foot, thing in Westchester County? Sure. It's like, no, I know where that's going.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're battling through it, but it's not, and that's the difficult part about Instagram is not everybody sees the difficulties that we all get on a daily basis with these projects. And it's like, all right, I'm not going to go on a story and rant about this flooring not showing up, because at the end of the day, that's getting boring for everybody that's following along, and nobody cares.
Right.
Nobody cares. Like I use Instagram to try to get clientele and show what we're doing, right? Like a future client's not going to care that I battled for weeks and weeks and weeks for this product.
Yeah, moving on.
They may want to know not to use the product, but they're not going to care my everyday struggle about it.
Right. Yeah. Chris, this was awesome.
This is a blast.
Appreciate you sticking with us through
it's a good conversation.
The technical difficulties in the beginning.
No one needs to know about that.
Oh, well, now they do.
This is perfect.
That was awesome. I appreciate you guys having me on. I know we linked up a couple of years ago, so it's good to come on and voice our struggles.
No, I mean it's always comforting to hear that we're all going through the same crap, and I think a lot of people relate to that. And no matter how, what percent market in the 0.005% market and everyone under that, it's everyone's dealing with the same BS at different levels and different pay scales.
Just different decimal points.
Yeah.
Are you gonna be out in IBS this year?
Yeah, we'll be out in Vegas. We got 4 people going this year. Myself, Ryan, Ivan, and one of our lead PMs is coming.
That's awesome.
So we
look
forward to seeing you guys.
For you.
Oh my God, dude. Me too. Trust me, because we all realized it afterwards. We're like, oh wait, got it.
That's all of us, guys.
I remember last year, Benny and I were like, we're going. Yep. We actually had a free trip given to us, and we're like, yeah, we're good. And then like weeks coming up to that, we're like, yeah, we're out. We're not going. And then like a couple days later, we're like, I'll go for the beginning, you go for the end. And then by the end of it, we stay for the whole thing.
Me and Tyler were like tag teaming John. Like, John, you're going. No, I can't go. You're going. I can't go.
Dude, it was year
all right,
one,
well, I just booked you an event. Oh, all right, I'll go.
It was. Oh gosh, That's why I'm like, I can just imagine.
Yeah.
It's year one, and it's you're never gonna get this time back. So the connections and the relations that you make at these events and the stuff that we get to go do, like I think that's just as important as being on site. Let's say sometimes, because
right.
there's stuff that I'll bounce across you guys that if I was just on site trying to battle through it, I may have done it wrongly anyway. Right. Whereas opposed to being surrounded by your peers from across the country and the world, for that matter, and just being able to break loose for a few hours a day and try to have some fun and enjoy the industry, It
absolutely fills the tank. I think every year we've gone, it's just like you walk away going, wow, this is awesome. This industry's bigger than what we ever thought it was in our niche. And it's so cool to meet people that inspire us daily, face to face.
But to Nick's point, it is great just to know that everybody like puts their pants on one leg at a time, and they go through the same struggles, no matter the size of the project or the scale of the budget or whatever. It's just like we all have the same headaches. So it's nice to be able just to meet up with like-minded people and, foster the industry. And I like it when, like last year, I met up with a bunch of young guys that were super into, carpentry and things like that. And to be able just to pass on, see their energy and to be able to pass on my passion for doing certain things to what they were relating to, like, that was awesome. And you don't get that on a daily basis, just, in our local markets. So I was like, yeah, that made the trip for me last year. It was great.
Well, dude, you're doing a killer job. You're impressing us all.
I'm much appreciated. Thank you.
And I appreciate your time tonight. And we will see you in Las Vegas.
Absolutely. Yeah, I look forward to it, guys.
Keep killing it, man. Best of luck.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, guys.
We got a review this week.
Yeah, we do. We do.
Do we?
Yeah.
Yep.
Is it good or bad?
I didn't. I read it.
You don't lie to me. You definitely read it.
Okay, I was trying to do something else. Hold on, I'm pulling it up. I wanted us to read someone's question. I flagged it.
Okay.
Because I thought we'd spice it up, and I thought maybe if we read the question, people could email us their opinion. We could talk about it next time.
Okay.
So we can get
Spice it, man.
Yeah, dude, trying, baby. What just happened here?
Do you have it?
Yeah,
Is
I'm
it
trying
queued
to
up?
Okay,
I'll read the review.
Yeah, read the review.
All right, great guys. Love listening to podcasts. After I listen to each podcast, I seem to have even more motivation to get out there and keep producing quality homes and remodels. Keep up the great work. Thanks, Darren Jennings. Jennings Design and Build LLC. Appreciate the review, guys.
Love the review. Love it.
The review. We need more though.
We do always. I don't know. You want to?
I like reading them. Want me to read the question?
I just. There's a bunch. We get questions. Through
Gentlemen, I am doing a custom home in Pennsylvania, and we are using LSL studs on all exterior wall and some interior walls. There are tons of windows, and I would like the drywall perfect. Now, we are in the rough stages, and every time I turn around, the plumber or HVAC contractor keep installing nailing flanges. How do you handle this? We're using the flush baseboard, and I'm worried that I will see it. Any thoughts? Question mark.
First,
recess them.
Yeah, we take a little flush router and just go across the stud and recess the nail plates.
Do you like those studs?
Yeah, but they do need to stay dry.
But more importantly, I feel like screws spin in those things.
I haven't had issues with
when
that.
you screw in like LVL studs, I'll use more than I use those because
our ComAv job's all LSL and there's no issues with screws.
No, but do you feel like I'm not saying this issue, but I feel like when they can overspin those screws in this.
I haven't had issues.
Yeah.
We didn't have issues at our Lake Drive project because that.
I'm knocking on wood.
Huh?
I'm knocking on wood.
Oh. All the cabinets just fall off the wall.
No, I feel
Crash.
Like, I feel like you could get screw pops. I feel like I've used it in the past, and Diego has been like, I can hear the guys screwing in, and it stops.
Interesting.
That's LVLs. I think it's all tighter.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I mean,
but that's what we've done. We've recessed the nailing plates. And like I said, just take a little flush trim router and go across it, and it doesn't take much time. And you also don't have to be super clean with it.
Or just don't put nailing plates.
I mean,
you cowboy,
if you want,
you're saving money.
And yeah, if you want to gamble,
or just pull them off after inspection.
For the drywall guy. Do you have another question?
Oh yeah, recess the back of the drywall.
You could do that, or just hog it out and put mesh tape over it, and just call it good.
No.
Is that another one?
I don't know. You read it first before we dig in it.
No.
Well,
what was it? A review?
No, it was a question, but it was more too generic. But hit us up with some questions. I know. I actually apologize. We haven't been answering the emails, and I realized I wasn't. Well, it doesn't matter. My emails weren't coming through to my phone, and I logged in this week and found a bunch. So I will follow up with a few of you guys. We had a really bad email, actually.
We did?
Yeah.
Who? Was
I
it about
forget,
me?
but it was.
Sorry, I'll just apologize.
It was. He felt offended by a joke that we made.
Am I not seeing these?
What was the bad email? What was the? It had to be me.
It was about. There was a comment about
the Amish people.
No, it was about we had made a reference to the Nazi. Hitler's mustache, and apparently we
that was
laughed
me
about it. But it certainly to speak publicly. It certainly was not intended to be funny, nor are we supporting that. It was just, and the guy was upset. So I wrote back. I apologize. It's not not our intent. I think it was taken out of context. So either way, the goal with this podcast
I'm
is
an idiot.
No, it's not. It's not that.
Hey, I said it to my wife day one. I'm gonna say some stupid stuff.
No, and we all do.
I apologize.
But at the end of the day, the goal of this podcast is to be informative and help and have open conversations. And sometimes that's joking or not. So either way, we appreciate the email, good or bad. So make sure you hit us up. And to do so, info@themoderncraftsman.org. Our website's themoderncraftsman.org, and Instagram @modern_craftsman. You can find us on all the podcast apps. Cape Cod Lumber event coming up December. Is that next week?
Yeah, dude.
Dude, is your truck going to be ready?
My truck's not going to be ready.
Oh, come on.
No, well, I was trying to get it. So I started this weekend to move it out so it could get towed over to your boy's shop. And I'm sitting there. I'm like, it looks good. Everything's great. And then I look at the gauges and I'm like, low oil. And I didn't have time to get to the
Oil?
shop, get oil, and do everything else, and then it snowed, so it's now behind a pile.
Well, either way, Tyler and I will be rolling down in the seat.
Yep.
We'll see you guys next week. Actually, you'll be hearing this on Monday, so we'll see you guys this week at the Cape Cod Lumber Build On Expo, capecodlumber.com/build-on-expo, December 12th, 9 to 4 p.m. It is a free event at Lombardo's in Randolph. We'll see you guys there. As always,
bigger than us. You got Sean Van Dyke,
Amy, Brian Sharon, Gary Striegler.
Hey, if you guys
Nathan
see,
there's that dance club below there. What's the dance club's name? Like Howard's or something?
Vincent's, bro.
Vincent's.
I was gonna tell everyone, if you see Silver Phoenix, try and get him to laugh.
Yeah.
He's got a fantastic laugh.
It's an amazing laugh. He's just a really great guy.
Thanks, guys.